In an unknown place, a voice echoed saying that the last dungeon had been cleared. The building that looks very big and magnificent suddenly bursts into flames and catches fire. There was a scream saying that the dungeon would collapse soon. Everyone present was asked to run away because if they faltered even for a second, they could die. Monsters that are still alive continue to chase and scream for them to die. Kill all the lowly human cretins that destroy our dwellings. The warriors who were running were even more frantic as the countless monsters were chasing them at breakneck speed and were about to catch them. Explosion after explosion continued. At that time, suddenly a fighter decided to turn around, making his comrades very surprised. He intended to hold all the monsters by himself. That person's name is Seo MoonYeob. Even though his friends tried to prevent his actions because they were running out of time, they were forced to leave Seo MoonYeob alone. In his last moment, Seo MoonYeob ordered, "If you all survive, make sure you get to work on my biography." Behind the story of this struggle, humans do not realize that they are not the only sentient creatures on Earth. Underworlders are people who live in an underground civilization. It is a civilization very different from that built by humans who are above the ground. Due to the sudden invasion of the underground civilization, humanity is facing a crisis. On the verge of annihilation, humanity tries to strike back, but no human weapons can harm them, because they have mystical powers that are even able to withstand attacks from military weapons. But not long after that, the conditions began to change. The mystical power possessed by underworlders begins to have an effect on humans, and those affected turn into superhumans who have mystical powers. That way, humanity finds their weapons to fight the invaders from the underground civilization. By subduing the cold-blooded monsters containing the underworlders one by one, humanity once again has the hope to live. Finally, in the spring of 2005, the 7 strongest humans decided to join forces and carry out an attack on the final dungeon that became the foundation of the underground civilization to end the long war. Because of their accomplishments, they are remembered as heroes who saved civilization. They are given immense wealth and popularity for their expedition. However, there was one person who did not return, namely Seo MoonYeob, the leader of the 7 heroes. He is the only person who didn't come back to celebrate the peace that human has fought for and died, leaving behind nothing but a name echoed around the world as the legend who has saved humanity from destruction. 17 years have passed. At this time, an international Battlefield League match was held between South Korea against France. In that match, France continued to pressure Korea with one of their strongest players, Nathan Bernard, who continued to slaughter Korean players one by one with ease. He killed 6 students from South Korea alone. Thus, South Korea was defeated without having the time to strike back. Nathan Bernard is a superhuman ranked 3rd in Battlefield history. Now he is facing the last player from South Korea, Baek Hyeon. Even though South Korea's chances of turning things around were almost gone, Baek Hyeon tried her best to attack. But Nathan easily dodged and counterattacked all of her skills, and finally, the last South Korean player was defeated. With this, the game is over, and South Korea received a crushing defeat. Nathan Bernard was selected as the MPV in that game. He became a frightening specter for South Korea. During the game, he managed to score 7 kills, and brought this match to France's victory with a perfect score, 11-0. Someone said it's a shame that even though South Korea is filled with the best superhumans who have defeated countless monsters during the war, they couldn't keep up with the times. This is an embarrassing result for a country that had produced 2 heroes who had saved humanity from the underworlders, Seo MoonYeob and Baek Jae-ho. Netizens' scathing comments started piling on the internet, and the audience there also started to get angry. They couldn't watch such rubbish matches. Baek Jae-ho, who is one of the 7 heroes, is now the head coach of the South Korean national team. Seeing the crushing defeat that his beloved country faced, he can only sigh. This was the 3rd defeat his country has received since he became the head coach of the national team. As the audience said, everyone except Hyeon was just an ordinary person. Korean superhumans are famous for being notoriously strong, but all that is in the past. Their mentality and skills are now very disappointing. With this fact, those with talent had already left the country or died. Baek Jae-ho, who left the arena, proceeded to walk towards the coach's waiting room. When he got there, he stared at the photos of the 7 heroes stuck on the wall. He sighed, wishing that his best friend, MoonYeob, is still alive. After that, another person come into the room and tell him that the reporters were already waiting for the interview. Baek Jae-ho immediately left. He intends to apologize to the public because they are the ones who had made him a coach. Baek Jae-ho has given up. It's impossible to win with a team like that. The person who is accompanying him tries to prevent him from giving up. After all, Baek Jae-ho only became a coach just a while ago. However, he is unfazed. He has already decided he will announce his resignation in this interview, unless Seo MoonYeob returns. In the middle of this, Baek Jae-ho's cell phone rang. It was the president of the association who called him, so of course he answered the call. The chairman asked, "Have you heard the news?" Sighing, Baek Jae-ho prepared himself for the lectures that is going to come. "That our national team has lost and disgraced our country? I witnessed it with my own eyes," he dryly replied. However, the chairman was not talking about that. As he explained the news he saw to Baek Jae-ho, the expression on the hero's face instantly changed, and his eyes widened at this unexpected news. The square has a statue to commemorate the three heroes. The first is for Admiral Yi Sun-shin, the second is for King Sejong the Great, and the third is for a man who 17 years ago saved the six heroes by sacrificing himself, Seo MoonYeob. A while ago, after the International Gotopia League match ended, someone fell from the sky, right on the statue of the hero Seo MoonYeob. That person was wearing armor, and had an appearance that is a very carbon copy of the statue he has destroyed. Apparently, the news that Baek Jae-ho replied is about this. Seo MoonYeob has come back to life. After Seo MoonYeob decided to sacrifice himself so that his friends could survive, the gates of the world finally closed. With this, all the monsters in the vicinity surrounded him. In front of these unending waves of various kinds of underworlders, Seo MoonYeob doesn't falter. Facing the monster, his eyes glinted with unbreakable resolve. "Let's fight to the death!" The scene then turned back to the present. Seo MoonYeob opened his eyes. He was already in a hospital. After being explained by the nurse who cared for him, he was shocked because the day he woke up was already in 2022. Seo MoonYeob was sure that he entered the final dungeon in 2005. The nurse tried to comfort him and said that it must be very confusing for him. She then proceeded to turn on the TV and told him to watch the news first. The news on television said that Seo MoonYeob, the leader of the 7 heroes who was previously reported to have died, has now returned after 17 years and is currently being treated in the hospital. The hero Seo MoonYeob fell from the ceiling of the square and was found unconscious in front of his statue. While he was unconscious, it was reported that he did not suffer any serious injuries. He was wearing the same equipment when he entered the dungeon in 2005, and he is most likely still a superhuman, as his appearance has remained the same and has not changed over the 17 years. Some experts speculate that this may be caused by the distortion of space and time. After hearing the news, Seo MoonYeob realized 17 years had passed, but he felt he had only been there for a few days. Therefore, the world is in an uproar now. Reporters and journalists had gathered outside the hospital, trying to catch a glimpse of the legendary hero. He thought that even though it had been 17 years, those bastards are still the same. After looking at himself in the mirror, Seo MoonYeob realizes that he hasn't aged at all. Is it possible that space and time distortions do occur? There's no way he could survive 17 years in there. It's unprecedented. Then Seo MoonYeob remembers the most important thing in his life, namely the savings he's accumulated throughout his life. The nurse explained that just like what Seo MoonYeob wrote in his will, everything was donated to a child protection agency. His house has become a museum, and his car was sold at an antique auction. Thus he has nothing to his name. Hearing that explanation, Seo MoonYeob was surprised and helpless. For him, it was only for a few days since he has gone, but now he has become a homeless man who had nothing. Seeing his expression who was desperate like that, the nurse tried to calm him down. She said to not worry about it. Seo MoonYeob is a hero who had saved the world. No one will abandon him. The fact is that Mr. Baek Jae-ho immediately contacted the hospital when he heard the news, and said he would be coming soon. Before leaving, the nurse reminded Seo MoonYeob to just ring the bell if he needs something. Seo MoonYeob is still amazed by this situation. Even though he saw it with his own eyes, he still couldn't believe it. He felt that he could ask Baek Jae-ho later. First, Seo MoonYeob had to check the condition of his body first. He then activated one of his superpowers, Scanner Eyes, an ability where the user can recognize and visualize the talents and abilities of living things. This is the superpower that helps him become the strongest superhuman in the world. Those eyes not only could look at current abilities, but also their dormant potential. Because of that, Baek Jae-ho wanted to become his pupil. At first, Seo MoonYeob thought he was weak, but after scanning him with his eyes, Baek Jae-ho has a super high potential. And with these eyes, MoonYeob helped Jae-ho to become one of the 7 heroes. With this in mind, Seo MoonYeob activated the scanner eyes and see that almost all of his stats were at their max. But there is one stat that exceeds the maximum limit, namely the focus stat, which reaches 110, the maximum of which is only 100. Seo MoonYeob also gets a skill that he did not have before, namely immortality, which made him immune to death from physical attacks. Seo MoonYeob was surprised because he got this overpowered skill. He realized that since skill can be obtained in certain situations, maybe he got the skill because of the all-out battle 17 years ago. However, getting this skill when the war was over was a bit sad. If only he got it earlier. As he was thinking about that, Baek Jae-ho arrived at Seo MoonYeob's room. He looked at him in disbelief, and tears started to fill up in his eyes. Grinning at his old friend, Seo MoonYeob said, "You have gotten a lot weaker." Seeing his friend was still the same, Baek Jae-ho wiped his tears and then smiled. "It's because this world is too peaceful," he replied. As the full moon lit up the sky, the two friends were seen standing on the roof of the hospital. Seo MoonYeob jokingly said, "Hey Baek Jae-ho, are you done crying?" Baek Jae-ho replied, "Just wait till you get old. I'm telling you, the tears just start spilling out." Seo MoonYeob laughed. "I'm still young, so I have no idea about that. Anyway, did you keep your promise?" Baek Jae-ho was confused. "What promise?" Seo MoonYeob said, "Of course, my biography." Baek Jae-ho replied, "Oh, about that. I hired a ghostwriter. They are famous for making fantasy novels. There are also documentaries and films about you. They even made your history look like a mythological story. Although the plots were pretty bad, they all went viral." Hearing Baek Jae-ho's explanation, Seo MoonYeob looked at the scene in front of him and then said, "What does that matter? I thought I died in a dungeon, but I woke up in a hospital. 17 years passed and the world was filled with something I've never seen before. I'm sure all of this is not an illusion, but still, it feels like I've been dreaming. Plus, even though I have saved the world, I'm just a poor homeless person." Hearing the heartfelt words coming out of Seo MoonYeob's mouth, Baek Jae-ho then said, "That's what friends are for. If you need money, just say so." MoonYeob smiled. He said, "Looks like you live well, huh? You must have made a lot of money in these 17 years. Are you starting a business or something?" Baek Jae-ho answered, "I got some money from raiding dungeons, and after the war was over, I got some rewards. I had to make use of them." Seo MoonYeob said, "It's strange. Even though you have a lot of money, how can this business not collapse if it's led by someone like you?" Seo MoonYeob's words really cut to the heart, Baek Jae-ho said. "I hate to admit it, but I handed over the leadership to the experts." Seo MoonYeob said, "Oh, so that's what it means. You don't have a job, do you?" Baek Jae-ho explained that he had other things he was working on, which was being the head coach of the national team. Seo MoonYeob was confused, and instead of explaining it at length, Baek Jae-ho took out his cell phone and told him to see the video on his cell phone. After seeing the video, Seo MoonYeob realized that these were the dungeons that they have previously raided together. He was confused. Didn't they all disappear? Baek Jae-ho explained that it's an artificial reality sport called Battlefield. They enter virtual reality and use it as an arena for the two teams to fight each other. This type of sport can be said to be a sport that uses superhumans who don't have jobs anymore because the world is now peaceful. This sport had the most popular sports, but in Seo MoonYeob's eyes, it was just like an ordinary youth fight. Baek Jae-ho said, in fact, there are no great players whose strength is equal to the 7 heroes, and the World Championship can also make a country's dignity. Seo MoonYeob said, "Oh, I see. So what is South Korea's position?" Baek Jae-ho was struck by Seo MoonYeob's question. "But say, are you going deaf because you're getting old? What position is South Korea? Even though our position is low, we still have many strong people, right? Trivial exercise like this should not be a big deal." Baek Jae-ho said it, but said anyway, "Actually, South Korea is in last place." Hearing that, Seo MoonYeob was immediately surprised. This is beyond his imagination. After Seo MoonYeob was discharged from the hospital, Seo MoonYeob was in the car on his way to Baek Jae-ho's house while driving. He explained when the great disaster had disappeared from this world. The next calamity will come to those who fall first in this world. That's why the country became weak in the battlefield. After the war ended, many of the superiors with superhuman powers, they were afraid that that power would be a double-edged sword for them. That's why the battlefield regulations in this country were very strict, and they spread propaganda that superpower would only cause destruction. They tried to control Seo MoonYeob, the powerful people in their country. Likewise with Baek Jae-ho. After hearing Baek Jae-ho's explanation, but understanding Seo MoonYeob's words, he said, all the strong Korean superhumans at that time were almost recruited by citizens of other countries to become players or coaches. Even though when he was still there were also many people who tried to take advantage of us by using all kinds of ways. I should have just stomped their feet that time. But Seo MoonYeob berated everyone being a police officer to the president because he was so angry. They blatantly wanted to take advantage of him. He had also held back against those who only said much because those people's average player level in his country was very low. So before Baek Jae-ho finished his sentence, Seo MoonYeob immediately rejected him. Seo MoonYeob had guessed where Baek Jae-ho's words meant. Baek Jae-ho definitely wants to drag it along, it's still in prime condition. Isn't it a shame not to use it? But said I would not waste it. So don't worry, I don't want to live as a superhuman anymore. My life as a living superhuman ended with epic in the finale. Baek Jae-ho said you don't need to fight with curving that material anymore. It's just a sport. Seo MoonYeob replied, I've never felt anything like carrying a burden or looking like someone who is responsible for someone else's sake. I fought to save myself when I was young, and for the honors and prizes they gave me when I became a human. Isn't it time for me to enjoy some alone time? Plus, if I did decide to join the battlefield, the mass media would be in an uproar. They will have high expectations and depend on me again. Not that I'm not interested at all. I just hate being a clown watched by many people. In the end, Baek Jae-ho didn't praise Seo MoonYeob anymore. He had to give it up. But Seo MoonYeob said he thinks Korean superhumans aren't too bad. Seo MoonYeob pointed to a billboard that was plastered on the side of the road. How is there a superhuman woman who became the star of a perfume ad? MoonYeob was surprised that his country still has a superhuman like that. Her eyes are really sexy, especially her body. Jae-ho suddenly said flatly, That's my daughter. He was very surprised to hear those words. Seo MoonYeob said, Isn't she 6 years old? Baek Jae-ho still coldly replied that it had been 17 years, and now she is 23 years old. Seo MoonYeob looked really awkward. After that, it didn't feel like their journey had arrived at the destination of Baek Jae-ho's house. When they got there, Baek Jae-ho's wife, who was also superhuman, immediately greeted them. He said, Wow, it's been a long time, Mr. Yeob. It's nice to see you again. Seo replied, Yes, even though it was only a week for me. They exchanged pleasantries for a while. After that, Seo MoonYeob realized that now his Seo MoonYeob felt very real. Yes, it was back to a peaceful world where there were no monsters. What to do now? Finally, Seo MoonYeob decided that he would enjoy life as an unemployed pro at Baek Jae-ho's house. He only watched soap operas. In fact, he intended to rewatch all the soap operas he missed from 2005. Baek Jae-ho, who overheard Seo MoonYeob saying he would watch all of that, immediately approached Seo MoonYeob. He asked if he would only watch soap operas. Seo MoonYeob answered, Yes, why? Didn't you say yesterday that you would let me? So why are you making a fuss now? He said a lot. Ha, yes, if you are free to do anything. He opened the curtains of his window first to continue, but the reporters had already gathered here for several days. They said they wouldn't go home before seeing Seo MoonYeob. After seeing the crowd outside but said it was crowded, You reporter who likes to make a fuss. Seo MoonYeob got up and sat down. He said, Prepare all the reporters. Tomorrow we'll have to gather them all in one place and tell them to get out of life from now on. The next day, Baek Jae-ho immediately prepared all of that. Previously, the reporter thought they had to stay in front of his house for 1 month. But this was sooner than expected. Rumor has it that person will destroy everything if he doesn't like something. Will the meeting be okay, huh? Moments later, the press conference began. But saying first, as you guys can see him back, I was also surprised. But maybe you guys were more surprised. Seeing Seo MoonYeob say so calmly that, Baek Jae-ho thought the press conference would go smoother than he expected. But seeing its frontal nature, it feels like there will be something strange. But continuing, however, with all the attention you guys are giving me, I'm not happy at all. Ask everything you want to ask now, and leave my life. Raise your hand to ask. One person, one question. A reporter asked, How did you get out and back from the danger final? Seo replied, I don't know either. When I woke up, I was already in a hospital. That's all I can answer. Another reporter asked, Have you had this in these 17 years? Seo MoonYeob replied, No, to me 2005 is still how many days ago? Another reporter asked, Have you contacted the 7 other heroes' friends? He replied, Not yet. And I'm not close to them either. Another reporter also asked, "Do you have any plans to reclaim your wealth?" He replied, "Of course not." Then the bald reporter asked, "If you must have heard about rock film from the head coach, then what if you have the intention to become a player?" Seo MoonYeob answered, "Of course not, because it's unattractive." The bald reporter sneered, "It must be because you're afraid of failure." "Yes," Seo MoonYeob replied. "The only thing that failed here was your head that failed to hold your hair." Seo MoonYeob's words made everyone there laugh. Then he explained he had absolutely no interest in the battlefield. He also did not find joy in the sport, so don't expect him to be your entertainment clown. He hoped that their curiosity about Seo MoonYeob would be satisfied. When he walked away and Baek Jae-ho was about to close the press conference, suddenly a reporter asked one more question. The reporter asked, "Yesterday the player said something. He said the 7 heroes are nothing, and they can't even scratch. What's his opinion on this? Walker is a battlefield star from America. He is also called America's pride tank." Seo MoonYeob asked, "Then what is the strongest screen walker?" The reporter explained that there are 3 of the greatest players on battlefield at the moment. The first is Nathan Bernard from France, the second is Roy Mayer from Ireland, and the third is Daniel Monster from Germany. Walker is indeed a great player, but he has not yet reached the top spot. Seo MoonYeob cut his words off. He said, "Really? Even though it's been 17 years, someone like that, if he just can't get the top 3 rankings or whatever. Don't talk too much. If you want to meet me, don't make it. Come manly to meet me. I will bury you in my yard with my own hands." He raised his middle finger at the camera. We turn to America. A man named Jachari Ubud, an American player battlefield agent, watching a press conference broadcast conducted by Seo MoonYeob, together with player Gareth Walker. The video ends with Gerard Walker seeing Seo MoonYeob's challenge with his middle finger, which made Gerald Walker furious. His anger rose to the point that the TV remote he was holding shattered. He immediately asked. Finally, the South Koreans showed their fangs. Right then and there at the beginning of this video, he is surprised to receive a call telling him there's an emergency. Image A is an official international match between countries. Even though the match was sudden, it was Baek Jae-ho who was unwilling to accept it. Meanwhile, Seo was watching a soap opera. Feeling disturbed, Baek Jae-ho's conversation on the phone told him to get out of the room. After he finished taking the call, Baek told Seo MoonYeob that it was all his fault because Seo MoonYeob had offended Walker before. He was apparently angry after being humiliated by Seo MoonYeob in public. Maybe he was sensitive about the problem of Seo MoonYeob, who said that if he couldn't possibly rise from the top 3, he wanted to face Seo MoonYeob. But since Seo MoonYeob didn't play Battlefield, it seems he wants to fight Team Korea instead. But even though Baek had explained it, Seo MoonYeob still didn't care and would still be lazy. Budget can't say anything about it and can only complain. But suddenly Seo MoonYeob realized that if they want to have a match between national teams, it means Hyeon is also there, right? A few moments later, someone entered the house, while surprised by the sound of someone who had just entered sleep. But after he saw who had come in, everyone fell silent. It turned out that the person who entered was Baek Hyeon, son of Baek Jae-ho. She came home early because she heard that her uncle was at home. She asks her mother then, "Where is he?" Her mother says he is in the living room. Baek Hyeon and her mother looked toward the living room. Seo MoonYeob, who had been lying down before, sat up and greeted Hyeon. Baek Hyeon immediately smiled, and she ran and jumped on her uncle. She said, "I was afraid you would forget me." He only answered, "How could it be that I used to always play with you?" Hyeon replied, "I love the pastries and chocolates you always brought with you at that time, uncle. Mother and father never gave me that." Seo MoonYeob said, "But you are already big, huh? Some say that kids grow up fast, so you came back because of the image, right?" She just replied, "No, I came here to see uncle. That's just an extra." "But uncle, there is something I want to ask. Is uncle really not interested in the battlefield?" MoonYeob replied, "Did Baek Jae-ho make you like that? I'm not at all interested in that." Then she asked, "Why?" With serious eyes pointed at the television, he said, "Your uncle has a lot of things to do. Even if you ask him, I won't do it." Baek Hyeon just pursed her lips. She says, "You changed, uncle. Whereas previously uncle always granted my request. Now I see it's no longer true." Seo MoonYeob replied, "Yes, but the request at that time was only for snacks." Sighing, Baek Hyeon said, "Okay, I have another request. I have to do an avatar dissociation check. Can uncle come with me?" Seo MoonYeob replied, "What is that? It sounds complicated." Trying to act pitiful, Baek Hyeon tries to convince him, "Please come for my sake, uncle." Dad said he was too busy so he couldn't accompany me. Finally, because Seo MoonYeob couldn't stand Hayeon's eyes that were so sad, he decided to accompany her. A while later, the two of them had arrived at the Korean Association. The two of them were immediately guided into a room. Association members will help to do test avatars. Call it the glasses. Baek Hayeon entered into a connection module. After checking his armor and weapons, Baek Hayeon was immediately connected to battlefield. Seo MoonYeob and the glasses guy could see Baek Hayeon on a large monitor in front of them. After that, Hayeon asked to be given a monster to warm up, seeing monsters that appeared so easily, but said, "Oh, so they can do things like this too, huh?" The glasses explained, "It's true that this is a reality sport using the association's special technology. They can recreate ninja monsters, and players are virtual reality." That was the reason why players participating for the first time had to come to the association first to make an avatar. He replied, "It does look very real. Maybe he wants to see how far we go." The spy who was dealing with a monster. When the monster attacked, it immediately dodged. With his whip, he tied the monster's neck, then jumped over the monster, then finished him off with one strike, because the avatar sync rate has been confirmed. Hayeon immediately left the battlefield. After leaving, he immediately asked his uncle, "How was the fight earlier?" Seo MoonYeob gave a thumbs up. He says it's not bad either, although he still has a lot to learn. Baek Hayeon was a bit annoyed to answer.
"Why don't you try it too, Uncle? No one told you to play, I just asked you to try the test alone. Besides that, I'm also curious. I heard from Dad that Uncle is very strong, so I want to see for myself. When I was old enough to see you fight, you were gone." Seeing Hayeon who got to them like that, Seo MoonYeob also agreed. He would do just this for Hayeon's sake. Smile for real and thank you for that. Hearing their conversation, the glasses said, "Does Mr. Summon want to try it?" Usually they did the avatar test after confirming many things from the step layer, but since Seo MoonYeob didn't really want to get into the game, he thought he could just start the test. He asks, "So I just need to sign in?" The glasses answered that Mr. Seo MoonYeob entered the connection module in such a state that his avatar would appear empty-handed. First of all, he has to have a weapon, but it really looks like he's struggling to carry the weapon that Seo MoonYeob will use. After holding the weapon, his friend said, "This is different from what he used to use. It's too light even though it's big." The glasses explained that what he was holding was standard equipment in the battlefield between players, usually using custom equipment, but since this was a test room, they only had standard equipment. If Mr. Seo MoonYeob feels uncomfortable, he can report to make Mr. Seo MoonYeob something else. Seo MoonYeob threw away his shield. He said, "No, is it okay for a spear to be enough?" This is also quite annoying, so let's get started right away. Seo MoonYeob immediately entered the connection module. He guessed he should check what the battlefield was like. After the system takes Teeman's body and weapon, will it be made based on the information obtained? When Seo MoonYeob opened his eyes, the glasses explained that he was now in a virtual area, which was a replication of the real trial area. Doesn't seem to be found. Error syncing between avatar and main body. Seo MoonYeob felt that the taste was quite similar to reality. After seeing the explanation from the glasses as well, it was Hyun who encouraged him, but asked the glasses to bring out the monster. The glasses complied and took out a monster for him. Seo MoonYeob knew was a lowly monster, but a bit different from the ones he fought before. The glasses explained, "Tuan Seo, the monster is an egg that can only be hurt by using aura." However, the monster they prepared was the strongest monster of its species. Based on the data, they said, "It's useless for me to carry a spear. My friend threw the spear away." When the egg cell was right within his reach with a flick of a finger, Seo MoonYeob immediately killed him. Seeing that Hayeon donned the glasses can only gape. They were very surprised by Seo MoonYeob's strength. "Seo MoonYeob said just this much?" the glasses said. "Even diesel fuel is not that strong of a monster, but still it's a monster that can't be defeated by just snapping fingers." He immediately asked the sub-district head to bring out one more monster because this time he was trying something. But think so it's no different from the real world? He thought he could try that in a place like this. But he said, "Even though you said that the one you said earlier was starting to be the strongest in his species, in his opinion, it was the same as being too weak. So he couldn't warm up properly. But what else could he do?" Before he finished his sentence, suddenly someone spoke in English. The person said, "Yeah, which means yes. The nickname of the strongest superhuman model. How could you be satisfied with a bank?" Seo MoonYeob thinks English. On the other hand, the glasses are panicking because someone is trying to connect to it using an external module.
Suddenly, in the virtual area where is, from above appears a person with an axe and also a large shield with a tattoo on his bald head. Gerald, I came here because you asked. Why are you silent, dog? Are you scared and surprised because you think I won't come? Even with the 7 heroes, or even 8 heroes, I will prove that your reputation is bullshit. Gerald immediately lunged at him, but his attack missed Seo MoonYeob. When Gerald was looking for where Sue was, but said, I'm scared because of you. It's impossible, I just thought it would be fun. He moved so fast that Gerald couldn't follow his movement. He in an instant circled Gerald from behind, then was in front of Gerald. Back on the other side, the Glasses and Hyan, who were confused, suddenly heard someone say from behind them. The person said, Don't worry, I let him in when Glasses and Chiron turned around. His father, Baek Jae-ho, and association chairman and manager Gerald Walker walked towards them. The chairman of the Korean Battlefield Association, Park Ginte, explained this. Seo MoonYeob has been talked about, but I don't think I have told you yet. I'm sorry, that's enough because Manager Amang Mouse, Manager Gerald Walker said. I thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Chairman. Our request is quite difficult. He said the man owed me a lot when he came to his senses. Maybe he could still speak. But actually Park Ginte thinks he should be the one thanking him for this opportunity. Seo MoonYeob might be interested in Battlefield. We turn back to Seo MoonYeob, who is fighting with Gerald the Walker. After a bit of mechanic clashing, he realized this man he was better than he thought. Temporarily activate the skill ice of analysis. After seeing the statistics, but the pranks and suggestions reached 100, maybe Gerald really specializes as a tank, and his talent willpower is 87. Previously, Seo MoonYeob thought that Gerald was an ID human player, hot-tempered, but it seems he has the strength to support his stupidity. Looking at Seo MoonYeob, who kept watching him move, said, Why did you stop and why do you keep looking at me? Before smiling. He thought that every contest he felt was usually strong. If someone like him existed 17 years ago, he and his friends would probably take him to the height of his superpower, which is also very suitable for his abilities as a Tengar. When he opened his eyes at the hospital, he wanted to try the superpower against solar tires, but it looks like Seaman will just try on him. After thinking about that, Seo MoonYeob immediately shot forward towards Gerald, because he thought that that's all I could see, you stupid, immediately swinging his axe. But at that moment Gerald realized that it stopped right in front of him, before Seo MoonYeob was hit by a viral axe attack, but smiled. He said, I'll show you something very interesting. Seo MoonYeob was sent flying backwards by the attack. On the other hand, only realizing Seo MoonYeob's movements, he asked, Uncle, just keep quiet. Why did you accidentally get hit by his attack and instead die? He heard Baek Haeyeon's question. Gerard also thought the same. Seo stopped right in front of him and didn't dodge at all, as if he wanted to die on purpose. When Seo MoonYeob people think about what Seo MoonYeob is actually planning, but said Baek Jae-ho was hurt more than I thought. Suddenly a spear shot towards Gerald from the smoke garden where Seo MoonYeob fell. Luckily he noticed the hit attack and managed to avoid it. But the question is, why is he still alive? He should have died with the previous attack that was as strong and without any defense. After a puff of smoke, it is gone. Seo MoonYeob coughed. He said, This is crazy. They also made the fast feel very real. Even those Seo MoonYeob who were outside who witnessed their fight couldn't close. Next, due to the overwhelming shock but still alive after receiving a direct hit from such a strong Gerald, even counterattacked with his spear, but smiled, then said, Tada! How did I tell you? I will show you something very interesting. They couldn't believe what they were seeing, but were still alive after being hit by an attack like earlier. Why? Seo MoonYeob explained that he got an extraordinary superpower when he almost died in the dungeon. So basically now he is immortal. He thinks his trial was successful, not only not dying but also healing his wounds, but said to the Glasses who were outside, he can't die because of the superpower he got from the final. Even though you Seo MoonYeob don't believe that such power exists, and Salmon feels it's unfair to use it there. Maybe his nature can keep his power there or something? The Glasses replied he was not difficult to prevent that power. Then Seo MoonYeob said, Okay, just seal the immortal superpower that way. The Glasses immediately sealed the immortal superpower as Seo MoonYeob requested. Seo MoonYeob shouldn't be able to use it. Now it's the turn of confusion to ask what is immortal item. Seo MoonYeob replied, Yes, it is a new power, so I want to try it. But if I use immortal here, there must be many reasons. If I lose, Giroud takes the spear that Seo MoonYeob previously told me about. He gave it back, saying that it was indeed as arrogant as it was rumored to be now. I wonder if your skills are indeed as described. After receiving the spear but said, Of course it's not as rumored because I'm stronger than that. Gerald said I will prove myself, so let's fight. Had no more reason to dodge, but instead answered defeat at first warned gates or whatever. You can't directly fight the strongest person. Of course I pity you. I heard I can't even break into the top 3 rankings. Hearing those words, Gerald could no longer remain silent. He again lunged at Seo MoonYeob from the front, and they again clashed mechanically. In the middle of fighting the mechanics, but returning to make very fast movements. But suddenly got behind the title, and went straight for it. But Gerald was still able to respond well and quickly to his attacks, even though his mid-range was blocked by his shield. But thought it wasn't bad until the response was like that. But he felt it was time to end this. Sama took a swing and immediately threw his spear despite the title managed to hold it. Gerald thought he was deliberately aiming for Sisi, who he was protecting with his shield. The spin of his spear and change of direction before hitting the enemy overwhelming control. So this is the strength of the leader of the 7 heroes? He claims that he has already won. Gerald said still no. The spear just grazed me. I'm still not dead. Seo MoonYeob replied that it was because I did that on purpose. Why are you even arrogant because I pity? You can't win against me wielding a shield that big, Gerald asked. What do you mean? You don't need a shield that big, and when you're smaller, your senior is giving advice because I can only say that your line of sight is blocked by your big shield. It makes having a lot of blind spots. I know why you chose my big wife, so if you can withstand attacks while looking around in the middle of a fight. But that is still not enough. It will only be your weakness against very strong and fast enemies like this, who can take advantage of that to attack your blind spots. So switch to a smaller shield by looking at your stats control and your next trade could work in your favor. Gerald asked, You're not lying, are you? Seo MoonYeob replied, Why did he have to lie to her? He can beat himself without having to trick him stupid. Although reluctant to admit it finally, Gerard thought he would try it. Baek Jae-ho, who saw this, shook his head roughly because Seo taught him even though Gerald was his opponent. But said the rest is up to you, that's all I can say, so I will go. It's time to continue watching soap operas. Oh yeah, because I taught you well. Don't forget to pay later. We will answer okay, but I have a condition. I want to fight you one more time, so fight with image codes in 2 weeks, Seo MoonYeob replied. Is it okay? Didn't I tell you that I'm not interested in the battlefield? I still have to direct a lot of soap operas. Whatever, I don't need your money. Gerald said he would pay for it or give him anything if Seo MoonYeob wanted to fight. But Seo MoonYeob still chuckled with his stance, and they continued to argue for a while. Those outside could only see what was happening, but it was different from the chairman of the association, yes, Mr. Jinte. He suddenly had a good idea, having seen the ridiculousness of it. A few moments passed. Seo MoonYeob was busy watching his favorite soap opera. But suddenly, the soap opera was paused by an emergency news. The news stated that Mr. Seo MoonYeob had previously said he would not be playing Battlefield. But we got reports saying that in the 2 recent games between Boyo and player Gerald Walker, there was talk of changing his decision. The sound we got from the duel was not very clear, but the anonymous who sent the video said that if you can't beat the team Korea 11-0 in the match, Image will participate in the friendly match between Korea and America that will be held afterwards. That was his statement, and the source also explained that Mr. Seo MoonYeob himself had agreed to the agreement. The video was ended by Seo MoonYeob. He got up from his bed. He looked very upset. She says what when I say something like that? At the Korean Method Association, Seo MoonYeob went straight to the chairman of the Park Jinte Association. Seo MoonYeob banged the table angrily. He asked, How did he happen, old man? Whoever said that? I'm going to kill him right now so that he's over here right now, and what the fuck is the point of this video? They edited the scene when I refused the invitation. I will also kill the person who spread this video. Hearing the chatter of Seo MoonYeob, Park Jinte got up from his seat. He said, First of all, regarding this incident, which has made the savior of this world, I, as the president of the association, apologize. Park Jin-tae showed his head in front of Seo MoonYeob with his helpless face. Said Gerald also brought about the socialization of the United States as the weak president of the Republic of Korea. I couldn't do them. There was pressure from the authorities, and I'm really sorry. Not only as a president, but as a hyung as well. But he awkwardly looked at Park Jin-tae and found his head happy to say, I understand the situation that is happening to you, but Before Seo MoonYeob finished his sentence, Pak suddenly stood up and held Seo MoonYeob's shoulder. He said, Even so, Mon, don't worry. I already have a good plan. So if you don't have to worry about this problem, only if the American team can beat the Korean team in Image with a score of 11-0 without a single death, Then the friendly match against Seo MoonYeob will be held. So the score in the battle is according to the number of players who survived. When the match ended, Park Jin-tae entered that requirement. After he told them that they wouldn't be able to catch Seo MoonYeob's attention if they weren't that strong, and they kept the requirements true, that from the Korean team they were quite low, but their level had never been to the point where they couldn't kill one in a match. As usual, Seo MoonYeob didn't care about any of that, but looks very upset. He had said from the start that he wasn't interested in bat or anything like that. But why is Seo MoonYeob people keep bothering him? Park Jin-tae kept on persuading Seo MoonYeob by using a desperate face instead of a lazy face, ending with a short sentence that we have known for a long time. Because I'm just this once. After being cajoled constantly like that, if it wasn't for Seo MoonYeob feeling indebted to his body, he would have refused. But Seo MoonYeob finally agreed. But only this time. He smiled secretly, and even wanted to kiss Seo MoonYeob's cheek. But Seo MoonYeob was disgusted. Of course he didn't let that. Seo MoonYeob made sure he really wouldn't join if the Korean team could kill an American player, even if only one. Seo MoonYeob won't give in even if Mr. Jintan cries to him. Park Jin-tae and patted his chest, he said, of course, no matter what happens, I will keep my promise. After Tuesday I discussed it. Janate asked him to eat. Of course Mr. Jintan would treat him. As he walked out of the room, thinking he will definitely keep his promise. But he apologized in advance from the report of the results of the previous Korea versus America match. Korea has never been able to kill a single American. A few moments passed Seo MoonYeob, like he was watching his favorite soap opera. But that day was not as usual. The news, of course, shows that he will participate in the next NMAX. Of course, the news makes Seo headache. He cannot watch soap operas as usual. Finally reached the end, but could not watch the soap opera, so he walked out of the house. Accidentally, he heard something when he was bored. He saw Budge was training Baek Haeyeon. He trained hair to improve his mobility. Because of his position as a sub-dealer, Seo MoonYeob was curious and tried to see Haeyeon start high enough. But he had already reached the limit of his talent, plus the speed and mysteriousness limit was not as high as Baek Jae-ho when he was young. It was impossible for Baek Jae-ho to give the result that Baek Jae-ho wanted. But the limits of her pranks and trends unreasonably put Haeyeon, who was in the dealer's position, even though such a training method was useful for Budge. That method really didn't suit Haeyeon. Seo MoonYeob walked up to them, happy to think that Baek Haeyeon was the ace of the Korean team. Under these circumstances, there was a chance they wouldn't be able to kill any Americans. Only noticing approaching, he asked if Uncle saw me practicing. Seo MoonYeob replied, yes. Looks like you don't need to do excretion training anymore. But Baek Jae-ho denied it. He said no. Mon Haeyeon is still lacking. Felt that Baek Haeyeon still had to train him more. He explained, Baek Jae-ho Baek Haeyeon is not you. You can stop doing the exercises to improve his silence and reactions, things that seemed to be lacking because he was worse than you when you were young. Haeyeon had already attained the same form as her skill in using the thing that also had the same superpower as this one. So you try for dealers like you, but you two are different. What are you going to do after you catch someone with your hail? Just answer. Of course I'll pull to change their balance or throw them at my partner. After catching them, said it's your own fault that you have to finish them off inefficiently. To follow Baek Jae-ho's fighting style and become the sugar of the East was worse and couldn't be like that. You won't have a partner who can help you finish them off. So what's important now is that strong and Superman-sip you have to finish them off with your sword right away. We'll visit this time, so paying close attention is not difficult. Seo MoonYeob took Haeyeon's sword and whip. Seo MoonYeob took a stance in front of a practice-usable bag. Seo MoonYeob swinging his whip. As soon as the whip that caught the opponent injured them with your sword, Seo MoonYeob jumped and slashed the bag. After that, Seo MoonYeob said, did you see, because those who can't kill using guava need to be proficient with swords using guava. That's why Haeyeon needs strength and super training from now on. Haeyeon's position will be replaced from the dealer's corner. Do you understand? Coach Baek Haeyeon and Baek Jae-ho answered with ha. Seo MoonYeob said, now, shall we do 500 sets of basic prank exercises? How did it sound? Baek Jae-ho and Haeyeon just helped to see the 500's addiction. Because Haeyeon and Baek Jae-ho were silent, Seo MoonYeob said, why don't you start doing the 5-rib practice prank now? From today until my 14th day, he will train Haeyeon. Walker at a United States National Team Building Korea Dormitory and Training Center. John Kim, agent and manager, was very pleased with Walker's warning. His performance increased drastically after facing Seo MoonYeob. He changed his shield. Yoon Kim said that after watching him for the past few days, He felt he had overcome his weaknesses. If he could master this series, Gerard might be in the top 3 ranks. Of course, because this is a big change, Gerald needs more practice. Before he gets used to himself, maybe the world will be quite difficult for his Baek Jae-ho to overcome a speed-type dealer like Nathan. But in the long term, it will be very useful. The general asked if he converted this profit into money. How much amount Juan replied from that he guessed it might be worth $10 million if Gerald learned the style properly. Maybe he can increase his Baek Jae-ho by that much when he renews his contract if you say $10 million? Okay now. Send the $10 million to Seo MoonYeob. SEO as a game consulting style who heard the words choked up and said, "What?" But he pointed at the picture of Seo MoonYeob that was showing on TV. He said, "I will definitely enter the arena. Wait a little longer." A few days passed after that. Now it's time for Korea's image against the United States in Seoul's International Stadium battlefield. Seo MoonYeob people have filled the audience seats. They cannot wait to see the result of this match. But what they are waiting for is the hero match. We are shown the players from each country. Hyeon, who is the ace card from Korea, whose performance has been eagerly awaited. After changing positions, also Gerald Walker, who was taken down by the United States after changing his shield. The Genji that was used for the match was the ancient palace underwears, which was protected by the skeleton troops of the Pure Marta Palace. And this has 3 levels, and as for those who are prepared at each level, it is outrageously wild. Are on the first floor Dead Knight, are on the second floor, and Dragon and Leads are waiting for them on the highest floor. The rules of the game are the conditions to win, that is, defeating the enemy team. Hunting points will be obtained every time you kill a monster, or one of the enemy players is defeated. The more hunting points you will get. The team can get a bonus. Aura color will be adjusted to the number of hunting points. After that, the minute players from both countries entered the arena. After they Seo MoonYeob got ready, the first round started immediately. The American team that was on the first floor encountered the skeleton army. They casually started chasing their moves very skillfully. The mobility of the American team is comparatively slower than the other teams nonetheless, but they pride themselves on a decent defense against an indestructible iron wall, after getting stronger thanks to hunting. On the other hand, the Korean team was already moving at an incredible pace. The Korean team ignored and avoided the skeleton troops. Baek Jae-ho, who was watching, thought, "Great. Good job. Keep running away like that if this plan works. The Korean team will win." The Korean team seems to have a plan. They plan to kill the boss monster first. Very aggressive strategy. The plan was high risk, but if it worked, they would get a lot of frozen hunting. Moreover, since the first floor would be closed after the boss was killed, they could also mess up the American team's plan in time. The Korean team is now facing the first floor boss, Skeleton Warriors. One of the players from America whose job is to scout to inform other team members that the Korean team is fighting a monster boss. The first wallpaper thus in America changed its strategy. The Korean team was a little bit closer to defeating the boss monster, but when Hyeon was about to give the final attack, suddenly Gerard Walker, one of the screens from America, entered, and manually with one sharp attack, used the power of one of his in-game partners so he could fly in. He was instantly killed after receiving the attack. After Hyeon lost, Team Korea's formation was messed up. Even the boss monster was taken by the American team. After defeating the boss monster in America, he immediately slaughtered the remaining Korean teams, so the first half was finished with a score of 11-0. Perfect score for Team America. After the new players finished preparing for the second half to start soon, we turned to Hyeon, who was walking. He thought again no longer. Even though Uncle had helped him, he couldn't even swim properly. After entering the special room as a resting player, Seo MoonYeob was already waiting for him. Seo MoonYeob said, "It looks like you guys Seo MoonYeob are back, so listen to me carefully. It feels like the eyes will fester after seeing your matches. So listen and quote my orders for the next round as well as I have patience." One of our players was Mr. Baek Jae-ho, but immediately cut him off. He said, "Shut up. I say this because it looks like I have to fight them with you guys. If it stays like this, it can be seen that you want to take the opportunity quickly. But there are still many drawbacks with that strategy. You have a high probability of losing because your attribute average is too low, and you panic when the plan goes awry. With your current abilities, even when fighting them 10,000 times, not even 10 million times, you won't win. Your chance of winning is 0%. It's really very embarrassing to lose like this, because you can do anything, right? So, listen to me carefully. At least I can help you guys kill Pure Marta Palace is one dang June that he ever completed with the current president. The raid isn't that hard, but the bones on the third floor are quite annoying, huh? And your current skills will be difficult to reach that floor. So let's forget about that and focus on the matches that just finished. The strategy you used in the first half is not bad. Of course it only works if you execute it well. First front line though, you guys rush to kill the boss monster. You are still obliged to check the condition of the enemy team, even though you want to quickly go to the boss area. But you must keep scouting, and the back line, when if the front line is destroyed, you should help the formation. Why are you even stupefied and waiting to be defeated after the menstruation that was killed by Gerard? You lost due to absolutely no resistance because you couldn't even find a basic thing. If you can, people like you are national by the guts. I feel sorry for Baek Jae-ho. The atmosphere in the room turned dark and full of depression, he continued. Yes, because the first half was over, there was no need to talk about it anymore. That's my take on the first half. Now I'm going to be serious, so pay close attention. We'll tell the strategy to be used for the second round. After a while, finally the second half started. The American team immediately split into two teams. It looks like the American priest will use the 65 formation for the second half. Agile reconnaissance techniques could easily clear the hunting grounds, and the cleanup squad, including Gerard, would focus on hunting monsters. This strategy was used to maximize the American walker level abilities as much as possible. On the other hand, the Korean team ran as before. The Korean team is well known for their defensive strategy, but what's happening right now includes changing positions. This match was full of surprises. Seo MoonYeob, who was watching the match, thought good. Seo MoonYeob as well did well. If you follow my lead, then opportunity will present itself. This time, it will definitely succeed. The American team scout who was asking in the boss area didn't find the Korean team and immediately reported it, the scout thought. Since this fuel only had one way, the Korean team might try to play the LED game. Who received the information thought it looked like the Korean team changed strategy after seeing the results of the first half. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before I saw Seo MoonYeob, because I seemed to be able to try out my new moves on him. While thinking that, suddenly right above them, the American cleaning team, the ceiling cracked, then collapsed, and the Korean team appeared there. Although it's great to realize that, he doesn't think the Korean team will come out of there. We go back to a moment ago when the same tells strategy to use. Seo MoonYeob explained that you will scout first, because Hayan is the fastest person. He would go and scout their positions, and if the number of people in Gerald's formation was less than 5 people, you won't be killing either the monsters or the palace lecturer. Martha Boney is a dungeon of one-way streets. This was common knowledge, but this dungeon actually had one other way. It is a secret passage that underwear's built by using warp. It was perfect for reconnaissance and ambush, so Baek Hayan, she would wear this when scouting out later because the entrance and reactions blending in with normal walls would be hard to tell apart. But Seo MoonYeob will tell you the way, so don't worry. If you use that way, you can ambush in America. It is discovered that the 11 of you will be passing through that road by splitting into 2 squads to launch a direct attack. But the Americans who were hunting at that time, this time you will attack them from behind, and when he will fight Hero Walker, aim for his feet. Doubted that plan? He asked. Isn't Walker known as a solid player? Are her legs really her weak point? Seo MoonYeob continued. That was true because there were several factors that contributed to his weak legs because Gerald changed to a smaller shield. The area that needs to be protected grows, and its ability as a team garden makes it more difficult. Looking at his current condition, he is still not fully proficient, although he can become proficient quickly even now, saying what cancel does. But the team has a tough mission to win without a single casualty, and in such a situation they will be surrounded by a squad twice their number. They would also be up against a superhuman whose mobility and agility were high enough to the point that any attacking opportunities would definitely be taken advantage of with those various factors. The situation would turn around, so trust me, and follow my lead. Back to the present, the Korean team immediately started their attack before the American team could set up their formation. Looks like the Hayan who have received the concentrate are consuming their aura to increase strength. One person, he and Hayan, immediately lunged forward past Gerald with teleportation skills. The target was not Gerald, but the American team support player who was behind, according to directly contacting the main team to return immediately. However, even if the main squad returns ASAP, they will arrive in a few minutes. Now the situation is 3-8 because of the winning number. The Korean team immediately attacked back, who was ambushed, has defended well enough. But because the Korean team managed to break through with their numbers, they sacrificed 7 people to kill 3 players from the American team before Hayan killed Gerald. In such a short time, the code made by Seo MoonYeob is amazing. The audience cheered loudly. An unexpected result has occurred. The Korean team has succeeded in killing 5 members of the American team. Jae-ho, who was silent, and Seo MoonYeob, who said, "I told you that I will help you to get improvised." The Korean team showed a lot of interesting things in that match, but it's a shame that the Korean team in this round still ended with the victory of the American team. If only the Korean team had run away earlier and didn't face the main squad of the United States team last match, maybe it would have been even more exciting. But the Korean team was faced with a strong team like the American team, able to score 5. They had achieved a big hold with those 5 kills. The moment where they broke through from the ceiling was very astonishing and the center of attention. The amazing match earlier was the ace of the Korean team among the 5 victims with 4 victims and 1 assist. A few moments passed after the match ended, seen being interviewed by a reporter from the mass media. The reporter asked what he thought about this. This time Baek Jae-ho answered that although in the end the Korean team still lost, Baek Jae-ho believed that this was a valuable experience. Baek Jae-ho's team getting good results against a strong team will push them to be even better. The reporter asked nicely. Then for the next question, the strategy in the second round was quite impressive. How could he have exploded such a strategy? Baek Jae-ho replied that the strategy was indeed surprising. This is known as a one-way dungeon. He glanced at his sitting Seo MoonYeob. Baek Jae-ho said for the second round strategy, it was an aid link, who realized Baek Jae-ho was attached to him when he was interviewing. He thought, he still insisted on taking me to the game. After finishing the fight, he asked, how did you manage to find the hitting performance in the match earlier? What kind of training did you do? He only replied, recently I was training with my uncle. My position change was also Seo MoonYeob's suggestion. Seeing Hyeon say that, he got annoyed again but said, damn, father and son are both troublesome. Why did they both have to mention me? Park, who was behind Seo MoonYeob, suddenly moved away from what he said. Park Jin-tae said, why didn't you know that Seo MoonYeob was right, your habit of getting angry when you feel embarrassed? He stood behind him, answered, what are you doing here, old man? Isn't the president of the association? Go over there and take the interview. Seo MoonYeob pointed at the reporters who were interviewing Hyeon. He replied, I am an old man who likes to work behind the scenes. Why should I take part in the interview? Seo MoonYeob replied, yes, you do like that, but why does it have to appear behind me? What do you want to talk to me about this time? Old man said you rude boy has no manners. I'm here because I remember the past. The secret path is only known by the lips of people including you and me. You are the one who made the strategy to burn too, right? Seo MoonYeob replied, yes, that's right. To be honest, using a secret passage like that feels like cheating because it's just a sport, not war. Because the opposing team has a lot of tank-based players. I thought of a guerrilla tactic that relies on team speed. But since I didn't want to go running with them, I gave them a quicker tactic, and sure enough, he replied, well, I hear you've still got his talent right too. I love watching you build traffic after so long. Your talent is too good to waste. But proudly answered, yes, I am indeed great. Park Jin-tae's eyes seemed to turn serious. He asked, if that talent or not, if you want to use it, look at Park Jin-tae's stomach and change. Seo MoonYeob answered this. What are you talking about, old man? Didn't I win the bet fairly? Park Jin-tae replied, I promise if you refuse this offer, I will not invite you again. This is the last suggestion, so listen carefully. To be honest, Pro Liga Korea will start soon. Seo MoonYeob answered, and then you told me to join the league? Park Jin-tae said, no, I'm not asking for such nonsense. Before Pro Liga restarts, I want to have a charity match with famous players. I asked you to at least play in that game. Park Jin-tae was a bit doubtful about Seo MoonYeob's answer. He would definitely refuse this offer too. But before answering, he would consider it. Park Jin-tae was surprised by Seo MoonYeob's answer. He said, what did you say? Seo MoonYeob simply replied, your age is like breaking your ears, old man. I said I would consider. There is no particular reason for that, but when I saw Hyeon's performance in the game earlier, I felt a little curious. Of course, the soap opera is more fun, but it's definitely different from the thrill of fighting. So I guess I'll play along once to pass the time. Since Seo MoonYeob dungeon disappeared, only this place was left for the fight. Hearing Seo MoonYeob's explanation, Mr. Jim was immediately happy, because he wrapped his wife's hand around Seo MoonYeob's neck and stroked her head. He said it was true. The mindset is indeed great. Good work. In addition, as soon as the video from the image is uploaded, the audience immediately reaches 10 million in 1 hour. But before, he was still annoyed because of Park Jin-tae's excessive behavior. His neck almost broke because of it. but saying that an old fart like you shouldn't have this much power. Park Jin-tae replied, "Haha, I got excited when I heard. If you want to come along." He says I didn't say that I will come, I just said I will consider it. So don't get too boisterous. But still it makes him happy, Seo MoonYeob said. But old man, isn't the Pro Liga going on in a bit? Holding a charity match right before the start of the league where the players have to check and maintain their body condition. I feel that you are in a hurry to organize this. He was printed surprised to hear Seo MoonYeob's words. He doesn't believe it but knows it, before proceeding. Yes. Let's put that aside for this charity match. If you admit to coming, then I'm just a few broadcasts. I don't know what your conditions are, but if you agree to come along, then I, as the president of the association, will cause everything. Seo MoonYeob replied. All right then. A few moments passed, we turned to Baek Jae-ho, who was holding a sword. He couldn't believe what was happening to him. Seo MoonYeob, who was in front of him holding a spear on his shoulder, said, As you can see my conditions, I will be a special guest for this charity match. Originally with this second life, I will spend my life in watching soap operas. But Seo MoonYeob stopped his sentence anyway. Because I joined, I'll try to practice a little. But after seeing the state of the boys being selected for the national team, I don't think I need any preparation. I don't know who taught them, but they are completely useless. Baek Jae-ho was also annoyed that Seo MoonYeob called the boys useless, even though Baek Jae-ho himself had taught them to study. He said, I'm sorry I ever made them useless. All right, the fact that you just came along is good enough, Baek Jae-ho. But why are you also dragging me into this? Seo MoonYeob answered, Yes, it's not fair if I'm the only one who dies. Isn't there no good target to hit other than Baek Hyeon? So unfortunately, I also need you. I can hear the previous questions, but yeah, don't be too strict in training me. It's been 17 years since I last took up arms. Seo MoonYeob mocked him a little. He said, You will lose your dignity, Mr. Head Coach, if it's going to be okay. Trust me, you will control yourself until your body returns to how it used to be. Seo MoonYeob. Before the match later, the budget answered that I'm still an ordinary 48-year-old gentleman who has been retired for 17 years. While answering, I've never been wrong, bestie, but used the ice open skill to see status. He was already weakened compared to 17 years ago. But if he can get his rhythm back, then none of his former possessions will return. Seo MoonYeob smiled strangely. He says from tomorrow, we will practice as your body is unable to stand. You understand? Shuddered in pain seeing Seo MoonYeob's smile as if thinking. He was looking at the night view of his building. He thought of two conditions from Seo MoonYeob. The first condition is put him on the same team as Hyeon because Seo MoonYeob doesn't want to kill him, even if it's just a game. And the second is let Baek Jae-ho join him. He thinks if he of the 7 heroes joins back, then all will also like him. After thinking about that, he was going to call someone. News started popping up about Seo MoonYeob taking part in a charity match. 7 days before the charity match started, Seo MoonYeob was seen practicing at Baek Jae-ho's house, even though he kept making the same mistakes. Seo MoonYeob continued to teach him even though he was a bit annoyed. It didn't feel like they had practiced for 8 hours. But according to Seo MoonYeob, it was just a warm-up, because he was going to watch soap operas. After that, so Seo MoonYeob asked Baek Jae-ho to continue his training. Baek Jae-ho, who was annoyed that he wasn't given a break. He said, Hey, you are still the same as before, but I'm 48 now. Take a rest, and you have to go somewhere today, so you won't have time to watch soap operas. Huh. What where? Sometime after that, Seo MoonYeob arrived at the Korean Battle Association building, but will carry out the avatar test as was done before. Seo MoonYeob was immediately greeted by the engineering team leader, and also the tenor Brown from the World Association was delighted, asking, Didn't I have done this kind of test before? I killed Turban and also fought Gerald, so what else is needed from me? Mr. Yunsu replied that because you made an avatar without completing the measurement of your effective ability first. To find out if there is a problem when making an avatar, we need accurate data about all of your abilities, even if we don't have any problems at the current inflation rate, other than asking if you can get it right. He explained correctly that because the avatar is the mirror of Seo MoonYeob, Baek Jae-ho belongs to that player who can even bring out superpowers that no one has awakened at all. In fact, there are many secrets behind the battlefield system. It is a closely guarded secret, even within those who oversee the system. From what he heard, it was a system created using someone's superpower. He said the secret that was left strictly behind was not just a program. It's strange, they copied the underground civilization turned serious. He says that's the thing you guys are doing now. Could it be that there were underworkers helping create the association or something? Even if that's true, it's better, my Baek Jae-ho. I hope they can appear in front of me soon. Horrified to see Seo MoonYeob's personality mixing products like that. After that, they started the test. Seo MoonYeob entered a room alone. Start strange dexterity and his aura will be measured in that room. Park Hyun-soo said, since we have to forget about accurate results to check the consumption level. I beg you to do your best. The first characteristic to do is stand 8A measuring device. Measurement will start. As soon as Seo MoonYeob pulled the handle, Seo MoonYeob immediately pulled the handle after several tries. The result was around 817 points. Park Hyun-soo thinks that for someone who is considered a hero, his strength just means average. Next, they will measure Dexter's start. This is on both sides of the room. There is a button as long as the signal is sounded until you are indicated to stop. Try to press the button alternately. Seo MoonYeob immediately got ready and started immediately. Park Hyun and Mr. Brown couldn't keep their mouths shut. They couldn't believe a tanker had stock filled that high. After finishing, the score reached 930 points, but Seo MoonYeob was still not satisfied with his score and took the test again. After the second test, after getting a score of 971 points, Park Hyun-soo and Park Brown again asked, "What is the highest score for this test?" Park Hyun-sooman answered, there was an incident how someone managed to get 1007 points on the internal physical test. Seo MoonYeob asked if it could be Nathan Bernard. Park Hyun-soo answered, "Do you know him?" Seo MoonYeob replied that Baek Jae-ho showed him a few videos before because he was going to attend the summer charity match. Seeing him in the video, I was curious because he said he was as fast as Baek Jae-ho during his old days. But there won't be many people who can fast Baek Jae-ho in his heyday with his one textile start. It's because the system uses points, it's fun to get higher points, and Seo MoonYeob also took the third test before focusing himself for some reason today. Very, very good condition and immediately started the test compared to before. Seo MoonYeob was much faster this time after the impression of being left behind was over. This time it wasn't just Park Hyun and Park Brown who gaped. Even Baek Jae-ho also participated because in the third test, he managed to score 1007 points, just like Nathan Bernard, the fastest superhuman on the planet. Seo MoonYeob thinks my score with Starlight 97 is less than that messy brat, Baek Jae-ho, in his heyday, but I can get the same score as him. Looks like I just moved faster than I can. Realizing that, Seo MoonYeob wanted to repeat Strange's test again. He wanted to try something after focusing himself. The score this time reached 890 points. It was much more than before, but according to Seo MoonYeob, it was still not enough. He realized his conjecture just as he had overmeasured his abilities. While believing it was possible, did he become stronger. From then on, thinking it was impossible, there was no change to his ability state when he checked it with Ace's open dialysis skill. But he continues to feel for no apparent reason, but suddenly realized that feeling must have come from that time he had felt the same feeling before, when he fought alone desperately in the final dungeon, when he displayed the level of focus of a silver human on the verge of death, his talent willpower that surpassed that of a human strengthened other abilities. While believing in such an effect even though he had no intention of fighting anymore. But with like that and also the new superpower Immortal, and the others, he can become even stronger. It felt like he was fated to enter the battlefield. Then they went on with their final test. They will measure the starting aura with a port in front of Seo MoonYeob. After Seo MoonYeob put his calm on the oil and filled in as much aura as possible, the color of the orbit would change. But here's what's interesting. Even though in the past we just entered the genitals of the weapon and estimated the results, Pyeongso replied, "Ha ha ha, now we can measure it much more accurately because aura's staff is usually determined based on the default stats obtained when awakening. It is one of the most important standards when looking for a good prospect, because increasing aura just from practice would be difficult." Seo MoonYeob thought his aura stat was 97 points the first time he checked it, reminded the ice of analysis to gain 3 points. The rest he tries to meditate on breathing techniques. He's been through a lot of trouble, however. Staff his current aura is 100 points, the highest start a human can have. Seo MoonYeob immediately took hold, OIC, and put his aura in. Park Hyun and Park Brown plus Baek Jae-ho considered again for the umpteenth time. The score that Seo MoonYeob got into this test was 1030 points, while just setting the highest record in human history. Hearing that, Seo MoonYeob said again, "Who do you think I am?" The previous record was held by another 7 Heroes member, Miss Saran, with 1012 points. They had thought the record would never be broken again. But after seeing Seo MoonYeob's score, Seo MoonYeob could understand the youngest member of the 7 heroes. His willpower was trash. but his ego was so high that it made Seo MoonYeob and him fight each other. If he got to hear this news, he would definitely make a fuss again. That way, Seo MoonYeob's measurements had been carried out. But he had to tell Seo MoonYeob something because of the effects of Immortal. His ability cannot be used in matches. We apologize for limiting one-sided monsters' full capabilities, but the association plans to sound Seo MoonYeob compensation for that. Hearing that Seo MoonYeob thought it was fair enough, this is indeed a sport that is won by eliminating the opposing team. If he really can't die, he will always win. But saying, "I don't care whether you restrict Immortal or not. After all, I also only said that I would do this once. But will gladly accept the money as Immortal he will use everywhere." A bunch of people in robes kept on praising him. They were hardline Seo MoonYeob praisers. After a long time they waited. Finally it was time for them to reveal their existence and their will to him. After he finished his training with Baek Jae-ho, he saw a crowd of people in front of Baek Jae-ho's house. He asked Baek Jae-ho what was this? That is, they answered they are Seo MoonYeob Foundation, a hard girl cult who worships you as a god. Seo MoonYeob answered, "Seo MoonYeob Foundation? Come to think of it, those nations were also in front of my hospital at that time, right? But why would they make such a fuss by praising someone as a god just like that?" Baek Jae-ho replied that they believe that the world will be on the verge of collapse again and you will come back alive. At that time, to save someone who was chosen. At first, I also thought they were just crazy, but you really came back to life, and now, they want the end of the world. Seo MoonYeob was very annoyed by that. He said, "It looks like I have to teach them a lesson." Seo MoonYeob immediately walked up to meet them, even though Baek Jae-ho had held him back. Seo MoonYeob jumped up and stood before them. Since they arrived in front of Baek Jae-ho's house, they endured the stop calling out the name Seo MoonYeob the Savior. The god was now in front of them. Seo MoonYeob again said, "I told you not to make a fuss." They all kept quiet. "I now know exactly how you guys feel about me, so stop thinking here. What are you doing out here in broad daylight? Are you unemployed? Who is the leader of the Demon Foundation breakup or what? If that person suddenly dies at the level of his head, it must be my doing. They wonder whether the Savior rejected them. Did they do something wrong? But in the end they thought the Savior must be testing their faith, and they showed their faith by keeping their eyes on Seo MoonYeob and calling out his name again, Seo MoonYeob the Savior." Seo MoonYeob's patience was at its limit. Seeing Seo MoonYeob who was like that, Baek Jae-ho said, "Ouch," Seo MoonYeob said with anger on his face. 10 seconds. If you don't leave in 10 seconds, I will beat you." Seo MoonYeob immediately jumped into the middle of the crowd and immediately stuck a label in front of him. Baek Jae-ho, who saw that, tried to stop Seo MoonYeob, but he still couldn't stop him. 10 minutes later, the Parasemen Foundation was scattered and piled up like a small hill. He only warned him. After Seo MoonYeob messed it up, he said, "You're the craziest person I've ever met in my life." Thanks for the compliment, but that's them. Why are they making such a fuss by worshipping me as a god without my prior consent? He said, I should stop talking. I think there will be a lot of reporters coming here, so Dad quickly came into the house. Seo MoonYeob replied, "I just need to finish them off when they come." But the two of them were not aware that from a distance a person in a black robe was watching them on top of the building. Actually out of that person's attention. But when he asked what was wrong, Seo MoonYeob replied, "No, it's nothing." Some time passed after that. It was time for a charity match at the international airport. Journalists had filled the airport lobby. They were excited because the arrival of American agents. It's been 15 years since the last time he was in Korea. Managed to become the best agent in America because he succeeded in recruiting the strongest superhuman in Korea. But he doesn't regret being a diamond player like Seo MoonYeob, but that's only natural. Seo MoonYeob didn't play Battlefield, and from the start none of the 7 heroes really cared about the sport. Although the 7 heroes, the youngest, Suran showed interest, but he stopped after knowing that his willpower was below standard. But the Avatar test video is really shocking. If Rei's existential skills can still be used, the Battle of 1111 will end in just seconds. This time he intends to take advantage of this opportunity to recruit Seo MoonYeob. But the reporter's attention was diverted by the arrival of Jacqueline, a superhuman, immediately approached and said, "Let's compete fairly this time as well." As the two of them locked eyes, the reporter's attention was again distracted by the arrival of the Moro brothers. Moro, the club owner from Paris, Lemire Jacqueline, and the Moro brothers could immediately feel the fierce battle for Seo MoonYeob. But they froze at the sound of approaching heels, untouched. At the Seoul International Stadium where the charity match was to be held, a large number of people came there. Seo MoonYeob and Baek Jae-ho got out of the car and walked on the red carpet like celebrities going to an award. The dumbfounded Yoo Hyun-soo said that Seo MoonYeob had just set the highest record in human history. With a smug smile, Seo MoonYeob said that it was natural and asked who they thought he was. Yoo Hyun-soo said that the previous record was held by another 7-hero member, Miss Shuran, with 10-12 points. Hearing that, Seo MoonYeob didn't expect that Shuran would hold the previous record. Yoo Hyun-soo said that they thought that the record would never be broken. Seo MoonYeob felt a bit in agreement, because at least Shuran's amount of aura was indeed unbelievable. Shuran's willpower was trash, but his ego was so high that it made Seo MoonYeob and Shuran fight a lot. If Shuran heard the news that his record was broken by Seo MoonYeob was sure that Shuran would make a scene again. With this, all the measurements were carried out, but Yoo Hyun-soo said that he had to tell Seo MoonYeob something. Out of curiosity, Seo MoonYeob asked what it was. Yoo Hyun-soo apologized, because the effects of Immortal could not be used in battle. Seo MoonYeob thought that this was fair because this was indeed a sport that was won by eliminating the other team. If Seo MoonYeob really couldn't die, then Seo MoonYeob's team would always win. Once again, Yoo Hyun-soo apologized for unilaterally limiting Seo MoonYeob's full capabilities, but the association plans to compensate for that. But Seo MoonYeob didn't care if they would restrict Immortal or not. After all, she thought that she only said she would do this once. Still, Seo MoonYeob would gladly accept the money, because Immortal will not be used anywhere. In another place, cultists are seen gathering, and the leader of the cultists started to proclaim that they would obtain salvation through him, and only him was left in their world. They must strengthen their faith. The cult leader then said that finally a revelation testifying to their faith had been sent down. While showing a newspaper article, the cult leader told his followers to witness her child. He loudly said for their safety, he rejected death and returned to the world. Their savior, Lord Seo MoonYeob. The cult leader also stated that now is the time for them to show their existence and their faith in Seo MoonYeob. The cultists also excitedly shouted the name Seo MoonYeob. As he exited the building, Seo MoonYeob was confused to see strangely dressed people gathered outside. He wondered what they were doing here. Seeing that Seo MoonYeob had left, the cultists started chanting Seo MoonYeob's name and called him the hero who would save the world. Out of curiosity, Seo MoonYeob asked Baek Jae-ho who they were since they didn't appear to be reporters. With a tired face, he said that it was the Seo Moon Foundation. It was a pseudo-sect that worshipped Seo MoonYeob as a god. Hearing that made him remember that those cultists were also in front of his hospital at the time. Baek Jae-ho also answered that it was them. Seo MoonYeob asked why they were making such a fuss by worshipping someone as a god like that. Baek Jae-ho explained that they believed the world would be on the verge of collapse again, and Seo MoonYeob would come back to life at that time to save the Chosen One. Hearing that made Seo MoonYeob think that those cultists were just crazy. Baek Jae-ho also agreed with that, but Seo MoonYeob really came back to life. And now they want the destruction of the world. Seo MoonYeob became very sick and annoyed hearing that. He then says that he seems to have to teach them a lesson. Seeing Seo MoonYeob leaving, Baek Jae-ho asked Seo MoonYeob to wait, and asked what he was going to do. Seo MoonYeob actually asked back what he meant, as if Baek Jae-ho had only met Seo MoonYeob once. Seo MoonYeob jumped up and approached the cultists. He loudly told them to be quiet. Seeing Seo MoonYeob's arrival, the cultists called him their hero and savior. Once again, Seo MoonYeob told them to be quiet and asked if they were friends. After the cultists quieted down, Seo MoonYeob was also satisfied. To the cultists, Seo MoonYeob said that now he knows very well how they feel about him. He then loudly ordered them to stop hanging around here and scram. A very annoyed Seo MoonYeob called them crazy bastards and asked what they were doing in broad daylight. He also asked who the leader of the Seo cult was, and said if that person suddenly got hit by a rock on his head, then it must be him. The cultists were confused because their savior rejected them. They asked if they did something wrong, but some said that it was impossible because Seo MoonYeob was their savior. They also agreed, and became sure that Seo MoonYeob must be testing their faith. Therefore, they decided to show Seo MoonYeob their faith. Seeing the intense stares from the cultists made Seo MoonYeob flustered. Cultists kept chanting Seo MoonYeob's name over and over again. Seo MoonYeob was surprised to see their behavior. Seeing Seo MoonYeob getting irritated, Baek Jae-ho knew that this was the end for the cultists. Seo MoonYeob, who had reached the limit of his patience, gave the cultists 10 seconds. If in 10 seconds the cultists didn't leave, Seo MoonYeob threatened that he would crush them. Baek Jae-ho shouted for him to wait, but Seo MoonYeob ignored him and said that he could finish off anyone he hated from the benefits he got from the government. Seo MoonYeob started beating them up, and Baek Jae-ho's screams could be heard calling Seo MoonYeob a crazy bastard and telling him to stop. 10 minutes later, the cultists had fainted from Seo MoonYeob. While sitting on a pile of collapsed cultists, Seo MoonYeob picked up a boy with one arm and asked if he still wanted to follow him after this. While crying, the boy said that he would not follow Seo MoonYeob anymore. Seo MoonYeob, who was satisfied with that, stroked the boy's head and said that was a good answer. He then warned the boy not to listen to what the cultists had to say again. When they were done, Seo MoonYeob jumped down and invited Baek Jae-ho to practice. Before entering, Baek Jae-ho called Seo MoonYeob to make Seo MoonYeob stop. Baek Jae-ho then said that Seo MoonYeob was the craziest person he had ever met in his life. Seo MoonYeob also said that he was grateful for the compliment, but they were the crazy ones. He didn't understand why they were making such a fuss by worshipping him as a god without his prior consent. Baek Jae-ho, who felt fed up, said that he should stop talking. Because he felt that many reporters would come here, he asked them to quickly enter the house. Hearing that Seo MoonYeob said that he would just beat them up when they came, Baek Jae-ho protested that it would only increase the number of reporters coming. Seo MoonYeob then told that he also finished off the stalker that bothered him at the orphanage before. While they were talking, the cult leader was watching them from a distance. Seo MoonYeob really didn't know why they were so interested in other people's lives. Baek Jae-ho agreed with what Seo MoonYeob said. Then suddenly Seo MoonYeob realized something. The curious Baek Jae-ho asked what was wrong. At that moment, the cult leader left in an instant. Seo MoonYeob answered Baek Jae-ho that it was nothing. The day the charity match started has finally arrived. At Incheon International Airport, American battlefield agent Joe Pellman has arrived in Korea. The big people of the world moved when they heard that Seo MoonYeob would be participating. Joe Pellman says it's been 15 years since he was last in this country and thinks that the superhumans from Korea back then were truly extraordinary. His secretary agreed and said thanks to Joe Pellman, who managed to snatch most of them, Joe Pellman could become the best battlefield agent in the United States. Hearing what his secretary said, Joe Pellman said that, but he finally forgot a diamond, namely Mr. Baek Jae-ho. The secretary replied that there was nothing that could be done about it because Mr. Baek Jae-ho was not playing Battlefield. And from the start, none of the 7 heroes really cared about this sport, although the youngest, Miss Sharon, showed interest. But he stopped after knowing that his superpower was below standard. But there was nothing they could do. Miss Sharon's avatar test video is really shocking. Joe Pellman agrees with that. If the extinction ray could still be used by Sharon, the 11 versus 11 battle would end in just 3 seconds. Even though he lost both opportunities, Joe Pellman was determined not to let go this time. Because this is an opportunity for him to get the biggest diamond, Seo MoonYeob, the strongest superhuman in history. His secretary, who realized something, asked Joe Pellman to see what he saw. From the arrival door, the European battlefield agent, Jake Land, who is a superhuman, has arrived. Joe Pellman's face turned sour. Jake Land was aware of Joe Pellman's existence and invited him to compete fairly this time too, while winking. Joe Pellman thinks this is not going to be easy. They both looked at each other. As they were having a staring contest, the reporters started getting excited by the arrival of 2 other people. The 2 people were seen wearing excessive luxury jewelry and luxurious clothes. That person said that the main culprit who ruined their dungeon business was now setting foot on the battlefield. Even though it was said that he had no interest in becoming a player, he had already taken his first step. Because of that, the twins of the Moro brothers, Jean and Philip, who are club owners from the Paris Lumiere Battlefield Club, said that they couldn't just let this happen. Those who are big fans of Seo MoonYeob are sure that they will definitely get his autograph. They said that they should be able to get his signature through an autograph or a contract. They wanted to meet Seo MoonYeob during the war, but they didn't have that opportunity. When Joe Pellman, Jake Land, and the Moro brothers noticed each other's existence, they looked at each other and thought, "Don't let Seo MoonYeob be stolen from someone else." As they were staring at each other, they heard the sound of heels. With the sound of those heels, the atmosphere of the airport started to freeze. A moment later, seen a woman has arrived. Untouched on the continent, the tactic engine running, the youngest of the 7 heroes, Shuran, has arrived. Seeing how many people were going to watch the match, Baek Jae-ho complained that there were so many people. Seo MoonYeob also said that it was good because the world population had decreased slightly due to the wars in the underground at that time. Hearing that, Baek Jae-ho asked Seo MoonYeob strictly not to say such things. Baek Jae-ho also asked Seo MoonYeob to control himself for today because this is a very important event. Seo MoonYeob got off the limousine and said that he would think about it. With full confidence, Seo MoonYeob walked the red carpet. Excited, Seo MoonYeob can't wait to play. The audience outside cheered for Seo MoonYeob walking the red carpet. Yoo Hyun-soo didn't understand what was so good about this old friend of his. When Seo MoonYeob was about to say something, the reporters ran to Seo MoonYeob to ask for an interview. Baek Jae-ho also pushed Seo MoonYeob and said that he would leave this to him. Seo MoonYeob was annoyed that Baek Jae-ho used him as bait. While being bombarded with questions, the annoyed Seo MoonYeob swore in his heart that he would kill Baek Jae-ho. Hearing Sharan's name, Seo MoonYeob asked the reporter what he meant Sharan from Seven Heroes. The reporter replied that Seven Hero had arrived in Korea today, and Sharan said that he was here to watch a charity game. Out of curiosity, Seo MoonYeob asked why he had to come, and the reporter replied that Sharan said that he came here to meet a kid he knows, who will be in a charity game. Seo MoonYeob also realized that the child he was talking about was himself. Seo MoonYeob also entered a room. People who saw Seo MoonYeob passing by were amazed to see the hero in the statue of Gwangamun with their own eyes, and wondered out of curiosity how strong Seo MoonYeob was. Seo MoonYeob approached Baek Jae-ho and asked if he had heard that Sharan had come to Korea. Yoo Hyun-soo didn't expect that Sharan would actually come here. Baek Hyun was excited to hear of Sharan coming to Korea. Baek Jae-ho grabbed Seo MoonYeob's shoulder and advised him to be careful. Seo MoonYeob was getting restless because he did treat Sharan badly the last time. Baek Jae-ho reminded that Seo MoonYeob cursed Sharan mercilessly at that time, and even made Sharan cry so hard even though he didn't really understand Korean. Starting to feel scared, Seo MoonYeob asked there was no way Sharan would suddenly fire extinction rays at him in revenge. He hoped that Sharan would forget that after 17 years. At the peak of that era, 17 years ago, superhuman from China, Sharan is a superhuman who was chosen as one of the 7 heroes who joined the attack on the final dungeon. The only child from a wealthy family who has extraordinary superpowers. She is strictly guarded by her government and grew up like a queen. But this 17-year-old woman is one of the humans that Seo MoonYeob hates the most. So Seo MoonYeob scolded him again and again. Baek Hyun prayed that her soul would rest in peace and said that it looks like Seo MoonYeob will have a second funeral. But whatever it was, the dizzy Baek Jae-ho said to think about it later, since they had something more important than that. Baek Jae-ho then called the attention of everyone in the room. He said even though they knew how the charity game would go, because they had a player who was playing the battlefield game for the first time, he would explain how to play a charity game. The charity game will be divided into 2, namely the Love Team and the Hope Team. The members of Team Love were the national representatives, and the members of Team Hope were the selected players among the common players, with the exception of Baek Hyun. But instead, Baek Jae-ho, who is a representative head coach of the national team, will join the Hope Team as a player, along with Seo MoonYeob. But being a bit nervous, since he hadn't held a weapon in a long time, Baek Jae-ho begged for his help from his team. The leader of the Hope Team, Park Chul-ho, laughed and said that they would try harder. Hearing that, Seo MoonYeob thought that they were full of nonsense because even after a long time, Baek Jae-ho was still much better than them. Looking at Baek Jae-ho and Baek Hyun's stats, Seo MoonYeob was sure they would be able to finish off all of their enemies. And as he expected, the rest of the team weren't that great. But suddenly, Seo MoonYeob was surprised to see a team member named Choi Hyuk, who was clapping. Seeing the skill and the limits of his strength, Seo MoonYeob believed that he would make a great tank if properly cultivated. Seo MoonYeob also called Choi Hyuk to come closer. Choi Hyuk then approached and introduced himself as a melee dealer named Choi Hyuk. Seo MoonYeob, who couldn't believe his ears, asked if he was really a melee dealer. Choi Hyuk answered that he was right, and that he was a melee dealer from Sangsung Spirits. Seo MoonYeob, who was still unsure, asked if he really wasn't a tank, but a melee dealer. Choi Hyuk loudly replied that it was true, and said that since childhood he wanted to be a tank like Seo MoonYeob, but because his body was too small he ended up becoming a dealer. When asked by Seo MoonYeob what his superpower is, Choi Hyuk answered loudly that he could focus his aura into a weapon and attack using it. When asked if there was anything else, Choi Hyuk loudly answered none. Seo MoonYeob thought that even after awakening strength and durability, Choi Hyuk still hadn't realized it. That's why he became a dealer instead. It was obvious that his coach had put him in the wrong position after just looking at his appearance. Seo MoonYeob also told Baek Hyeon to go find a shield. After getting the shield, Seo MoonYeob told Choi Hyuk to wear it. Choi Hyuk did not understand what Seo MoonYeob wanted. Seo MoonYeob then told him how to use the shield. Choi Hyuk tries to convince Seo MoonYeob that he is a dealer, but Seo MoonYeob insists on him doing it. The people who witnessed this had heard that Seo MoonYeob was a little crazy, but they didn't expect that he would be this crazy. He even changed the position of someone he met for the first time. They weren't sure if they would be fine if they teamed up with Seo MoonYeob. A flustered Choi Hyuk tried to ask Baek Jae-ho for help, but only turned away and changed his team formation. Choi Hyuk panicked because his coach also ignored him. Since his position was set, Baek Jae-ho ordered to use the equipment now. Unexpectedly, the armor that Seo MoonYeob was wearing was light. Baek Jae-ho said that even though the armor was light, it was as sturdy as the armor they wore during the war. Seeing Baek Jae-ho's expression, asked if he was okay. Baek Jae-ho answered that he was just a little awkward, because he didn't expect to wear this uniform at all. He then said not to worry about weapons because they said they had already prepared the weapon Seo MoonYeob used with some small changes. Looking at the spear he was holding, Seo MoonYeob thought that they repaired it properly. Baek Jae-ho heard that they were really thorough in their work. In the end, the spear is a weapon full of history because it has saved the world. Baek Jae-ho warned not to let Seo MoonYeob down. He knew that Seo MoonYeob was strong, but the ones he had fought were only monsters or underworlders, while their opponents are trained to fight humans. Although their abilities are slightly lacking compared to other countries, their experience is not lacking. Baek Jae-ho was sure that they must have more experience fighting humans than the two of them. Hearing that Seo MoonYeob said that he would remember that, and invited Baek Jae-ho to go, because they had to beat that seasoned junior he was talking about. The audience cheered excitedly because the match was about to start. After Seo MoonYeob checked his opponent while waiting earlier, he realized that it was not without reason that they were made as national representatives. The average ability score of the opposing team is around 70, while his team has an average score of 60. They are better than Seo MoonYeob's team on paper. But Seo MoonYeob was surprised that none of them had a particular specialty. Out of curiosity, Seo MoonYeob asked Baek Jae-ho how he chose players. He replied they usually test based on several factors and use their numbers to judge it. Seo MoonYeob also understood that because the method used the sum of scores, there was no way for people with certain specialties to enter. Seo MoonYeob was then surprised when he saw a member of the opposing team. His overall stats weren't too bad, but his willpower was trash. It made him think that that person probably grew up in a rich family and was always pampered like everyone he knew. While Seo MoonYeob was thinking, the person rudely called him an old man and asked what he saw. The unsure Seo MoonYeob asked if he had spoken to her just now. The man remembered the fight between KR versus US. He thought that Seo MoonYeob was just a fossil from the Underworld War era. He also insulted Seo MoonYeob because he didn't really know about Battlefield. Seo MoonYeob also ordered to switch places with his team members. After standing next to the man, Seo MoonYeob asked him who he was because he seemed to have some grievances with him. Of course he had his complaints because Seo MoonYeob was acting all over the place during the A match back then. He said that Seo MoonYeob looked sick because he acted pretentious, even though he had never played Battlefield. Seo MoonYeob laughed too. The man asked what he was laughing about, and was about to threaten Seo MoonYeob. But Seo MoonYeob interrupted, and asked the profession of the man's father. After knowing that he was the son of the vice president of the association, Seo MoonYeob said that his guess was correct. The rich man's son was about to say something, but he was interrupted by an announcement that players were asked to enter the stadium. When Seo MoonYeob was about to leave, the rich man's son stopped him and asked why he was talking about wealth, and asked his father. Seo MoonYeob replied that he was just curious about what his father did to raise a godless brat like him. Because he grew up in quite harsh conditions, Seo MoonYeob hated trash like him, who grew up with a spoiled mentality. But thanks to this, Seo MoonYeob became very excited to play Battlefield. Pointing his finger, Seo MoonYeob called him a bastard and said that he would die. There was a very loud scream from all over. Everyone shouted the same thing, namely the name Seo MoonYeob. There was not a single person who did not rejoice at the return of the hero. With cool looks, Seo MoonYeob and Baek Jae-ho got out of the limousine. The two of them happily walked the red carpet, and the audience who kept screaming made Baek Jae-ho wonder Why do people keep on boasting about this guy? But suddenly from the front, a group of journalists came towards them. Lazy to be trapped by a group of reporters who wanted to do an interview, Baek Jae-ho quickly pushed Seo MoonYeob and left using teleportation. He handed over the reporters to Seo MoonYeob. The reporters immediately bombarded him, starting from asking the reason why he beat Simon's foundation. Doesn't he feel guilty attacking many people like that? How is it currently? How will you deal with this game theory? Miss Saran, who is a member of the other 7 heroes, has arrived in Korea. How do you feel after finally meeting her again after 17 years past? Seo MoonYeob was very annoyed because Baek Jae-ho even left himself as bait. However, there was one question that made Seo MoonYeob somewhat curious, namely Saran's arrival in Korea. Wait a minute, did you say Saran? Is he coming? The reporter answered his question. Yes. Miss Saran has arrived in Korea today. She said that she came here to watch the game, and she said that she wanted to meet a child she knows who will be in the game this time. All are shocked to hear that. Seo MoonYeob then said, wait, that kid? Is he talking about me? A few moments finally passed, when Seo MoonYeob entered the room where the players who were going to participate in Series 3 gathered. The players there immediately started talking about it. They didn't expect to see the real hero Seo MoonYeob firsthand, whereas at the time before they only saw the statue. Do they wonder how great he is? But Seo MoonYeob ignored all of that. He went straight to his colleague. He asked, Hey Baek Jae-ho, did you hear that Saran came to Korea? Baek Jae-ho with a straight face said, So he came here, huh? Haeyeon suddenly appeared behind Baek Jae-ho, and he happily asked, Is he going to Korea? Baek Jae-ho, who held Seo's shoulder with a sigh, then said, My friend, be careful for now. Carry a shield wherever you go. Nervously and a little desperate, she said, I did treat her badly last time. Baek Jae-ho replied that he said it mercilessly at that time, even to the point where he burst into tears even though he didn't understand Korean. Seo MoonYeob said, But if it comes to revenge after all this time, it shouldn't be possible, right? Baek Jae-ho replied, Who knows if you two have spent 17 years together? Maybe time will heal his wounds and he will forget about it. But you're still the same person who called it that time. But remembering the past at the peak of that era 17 years ago, this superhero from China named Saran was a superhuman who was chosen as one of the 7 heroes who took part in the attack on the final dungeon. The only child of a wealthy family who has an extraordinary superpower. She was kept under strict guard by her government and grew up to be a queen. But this 17-year-old woman is one of the humans that Seo MoonYeob hates so much. He always scolded her, annoyed, and then scolded her again and again and again. He scolded with all the toxic sentences from the most toxic. All bowed down listlessly, remembering it all. Jae-ho and Haeyeon shook their heads. Haeyeon said, Uncle, I pray for your soul to rest in peace. It looks like you will get your second funeral. Baek Jae-ho said, Well, whatever it is, we'll think about it later. We have something more important than that. Baek Jae-ho immediately shouted to attract the attention of all the players who were there. He said, Even though you all already know how the strategy will work because we have a player who is playing this battle game for the first time, I will explain how to play a charity game. The game will be divided into 2 teams, namely the work team and the hoax team. As you know, the members of the work team are national representatives, and the members of the home team are players who are selected among ordinary players, with exceptions. But instead, I'm national team representative head coach Baek Jae-ho to join Hope's team as a player in the middle position, along with Seo MoonYeob in the tank position. But I'm a little nervous because I haven't held a weapon in a long time, so please help. The players there immediately welcomed Baek Jae-ho, and everyone thought, even though it's been a long time, Baek Jae-ho is still much better than all of them. If with a very high start like that, Baek Jae-ho and Haeyeon will be able to finish off all their enemies. But activated his Ice of Analysis skill and looked at the state of all the players in front of him. As he expected, the rest weren't as great as he thought, but his attention is focused on a player whose stats are above average, who also has skills and focus that can quickly post aura into weapons, as well as the strange ability skill where aura always protects the body from being easily injured by the impact of external attacks. The track limit is also up to 90. If the player is well developed, he can become a great tank. Everyone immediately called the player. The player introduced himself. His name was Choi Hyuk, and everyone answered, "Oh yeah? Huh, did I hear wrong? If you are a melee dealer?" He replied, "That's right, sir. I'm a manager from the Samsung Spiritus team." But he asked, "Hey, aren't you a tank?" He replied again, "Yes, sir. When I was little, I wanted to be a tank like you, but because my body was too small. Finally, I became a dealer. My superpower. I can focus aura into weapons and attack using thinking. Even after raising durability, he still hasn't realized it yet. That's why he became a dealer instead?" It was clear that his coach had put him in the wrong position. After only seeing his appearance, he immediately ordered Hyeon to look for a shield after everyone returned and told Choi Hyuk to try using the shield. Everyone explained we didn't have much time, so I'll just explain the basics. Hear this. Position the shield in front of your left chest, and simply move your body in this position, forward to attack, and then back behind the shield to hide. Forward and back, okay? Answer, but I am a dealer, sir. Seo MoonYeob stressed, "You dare to go against me, huh? Just do what you're told." So Hyuk could not help but accept the shield. The players there started to make strange assumptions. They did hear that being arrogant was a little crazy, but they didn't expect it to be this crazy. He suddenly changed the position of someone he was meeting for the first time. Is it fine if they team up with him? So Hyuk tries to ask the coach for help, but he can't help him. Turning away from Choi Hyuk, who was making a code asking for help from him, he said, "All right then, 4 tanks, 6 dealers, and 1 support." With that, even the chords ignored him. Because the position was fixed, they also put on the equipment. All of them who had put on the equipment said, "Oh, this is light." Baek Jae-ho said, "Even though it's light, it's as sturdy as the armor we used during the war. Does it feel good?" All answered he was comfortable. "But are you okay? Your expression says otherwise." He said it was because I was a little clumsy. I didn't expect to wear this uniform at all. "Ah, don't worry about the gun. They say they have prepared the weapons you're used to with some small changes." Everyone checked the spears but said the hem lengthened and shortened quite nicely. Looks like they got it right. He said, "I heard they were meticulous about it. In the end, isn't it a weapon full of history because it has saved the world?" But he replied, "Oh my God, even though it was still not a year since this weapon was made." He continues, "Please don't let your guard down. Yes, I know you're strong, but the ones you fought against were monsters or Wonderwall, whereas these guys were trained to fight humans. Although their abilities were a bit lacking compared to other countries, their experience was not lacking. They must have more experience fighting humans than the rest of us." Smiling at the statement from Baek Jae-ho, he then said, "Yes, I will remember that, coach. Fine, let's go. We have to defeat that seasoned junior you spoke of." The spectators in the area were already very excited to replace the game that day. In the hallway before entering the arena, everyone checked when the players who were going to participate took place. He realized that they were made as national representatives, not without reason. The team's average score is around 70 compared to the team's average score. Tim Hope is only around 60. Better than Tim Hope on paper, but this is quite interesting. How could none of them have a certain specialty? "They are all the same," he whispered to Baek Jae-ho. "Oi, Baek Jae-ho, when you choose a prayer, do you judge them or something?" He replied, "Usually we score them based on several factors and use the sum of their scores. To choose it all, think I know it because the method uses the sum of the scores. So people with certain specialties can't enter. When everyone looked at the other players, someone shot back at him. He thought, what's with that person overall? It's not that bad. But the tower limit is 60, but he only has 26. That kid also grew up in a family and was always pampered. He must be useless in the real world." Realizing himself being stared at by all the players, the one named Shin Young-so said, "What are you looking at, old man?" Seo MoonYeob replied, "Huh, did you just talk to me?" The player says, "Yes, you old man." Player looked at everyone cynically. He thought Seo MoonYeob was like the time in Image Korea versus America. Fossil base from the Underworld War era. He ended up not even knowing much about the battlefield. Everyone asked to switch places briefly with the player behind him to make it easier to chat with the boy. After standing side by side with him, Seo MoonYeob asked, "Who are you? It seems you have a complaint with the player." He replied sarcastically, "Of course, I have many complaints about you. You also acted arbitrarily during the image at that time. If you look yawning because you act pretentious, even though you've never played battle." He laughed at what he said. The player got annoyed because he was laughed at. He said, "What's so funny, huh?" Before the sim player could say his sentence, someone cut him off and said, "Hey, what does your father do?" Player still answered, "Huh, he's the vice president of the association. He says I thought you were." Their conversation was interrupted by a notification ordering slot players to immediately enter the stadium where the match was taking place. Heard the notification, same said, "They told us to come in." The boy Sultan player replied, Wait. Why are you talking about wealth and stuff like that, and why did I ask me about my father? He said, Well, I was just wondering what your father did to raise a clueless kid like you. As you know, I grew up in pretty harsh conditions, so I hate trash like you who grew up with a spoiled mentality. But thanks to you, I got excited to play Battlefield. Geez, you will die by my hands. He pointed his middle finger at the player who was looking at him strangely. A few moments passed, the players entered the arena, and the audience cheered again, shouting the player's name. When Seo MoonYeob entered the arena, the moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. Seo MoonYeob finally stood on the battlefield as a player, even though this is just a charity game, but they all couldn't find a more interesting match than this. We can see lots of Battlefield celebrities among the audience, thus the first set, so the game series begins. Now the pill for the first game consists of 3 circles and has a secret path in the middle that leads to a dungeon area. The monsters that will appear are Arkham and the national representative server currently loaded, and the team has heroes from 17 years ago. 10 minutes ago, Baek Jae-ho explained the strategy they would use. First, the starting point for this match is Area 5 for their team, the Hope team, and Area 1 for the Love team opposite each other. Hope team will hunt in Area 5, 1, then move to Area 5, 2. The main troop will continue there to continue hunting, while Seo MoonYeob will move to Areas 5, 3, and hunt the boss from Area 5 alone, because of that area boss. After killing him, the whole of Area 5 will be chaotic, so we need to match the time with hunting in Area 5. Others answered, okay, that's easy. But other players even questioned Seo MoonYeob's power to kill the servant alone. Shouldn't there be 5 people to be able to defeat him? Even strong teams should put 3 people on it. Baek Jae-ho continued his strategy. After that, their team would clear Area 6 and go towards the deeper circle. At that time, their team might meet with the enemy team, but if that happens, Baek Jae-ho and Seo MoonYeob and also Baek Jae-ho will try to hold them back. If it was just a small-scale battle, the strength of the 3 of them was superior, so the 3 of them would be able to defeat the enemy team. But everyone thought differently. According to him, their team would be able to win if it was 11 or 11 straight from the start. But we'll take advantage of this opportunity to better understand the battlefield and not be too hasty in the first mage. The Hope team has entered the store area 5.1 point. Baek Jae-ho immediately ordered all of his units to head to their respective positions. Main dealer behind both Hyeon, advanced dealer and tank, and a player forced to become a tank, Choi Hyuk. They immediately started the hunt. On the other hand, at the starting point, the team loves Area 1-1. Team leader Lok Hyun is coordinating his team to hunt arsenic monsters, but his team member Youngsu's team, who is the dealer player of Team Love, is annoyed listening to his directions. Player Shim looks irritated with Seo MoonYeob's previous provocation. He forgot his annoyance by attacking mode with blind pigs. Everyone immediately invited Baek Jae-ho to do a wombo combo with him. They were extraordinary arsenic monsters that were hard to beat because their sheer numbers could be overcome instantly with just the 2 of them. The audience was immediately excited to see the 2 of them. After cleaning up the monsters on the ceiling, Seo MoonYeob and Baek Jae-ho immediately cleaned up the molluscus in front of them, who were forced into the match technique. He was stunned by everyone's incredible movement. He knew that the monster art had relatively low HP, and it was fine that you couldn't break through its intense scorching. But how could he seal it so easily to death? Suddenly realizing that everyone must be using his superpower, player Choi doesn't want to stay silent. It positions itself as described by all before. He also uses his superpower. Aura focused because it was her first time using a shield, and she was still not used to it. So he just stabbed Aura into his weapon. As usual, he can't just use Aura to focus on his sword. But he also has to use it as a shield too. Player Choi immediately fights like that when attacking and defending. The focus must be on his weapon. All who saw it thought, oh, he has grown quite a lot in such a short time. Everyone smiled and said, good, good. I also cannot continue to relax. But continuing his hunt, he showed his extraordinary technique. Using one of his techniques, the Moro brothers, who saw that in the audience were immediately excited. They both said in unison, oh, that technique, that's the mainstay technique of all 100 centimeters. With Saran sitting beside them, confirming that. Saran thought 100 centimeters row, even though it just looks like a normal stab using a spear. But in reality, it is a technique that uses his superpower throw. By using throw, the spear will fly instantly at super speed towards the target before the spear could leave his hand, which meant before it flew to 100 centimeters, he picked up the spear again. It created an unbelievably fast thrust. It had far more destructive power than just using normal muscles. Even so, when using a crazy technique while retrieving a bird that was just shot, his reaction was so casual that most people would think he was just stabbing normally, a technique that you shouldn't fail even once in throwing the spear and picking it up again, because he was used to doing it in a real fight as easily as breathing. 17 years ago, and now Seo MoonYeob. You really suck. The series that attacked him suddenly from behind all easily killed him. She says, "Dare you, I have to clean it fast and go somewhere else soon." With that Area 51 is done, the team cleans up after all Hope team members gather. Baek Jae-ho said, "Great job, everyone. Then we'll head to Area 52, and everything even soon." He still just realized that all was not there. Player said, "He immediately ran away after we finished with the monsters just now. He said he would go clean up Area 53 as planned. Quickly follow me." Majin sighed. He said, "Okay, if everyone has decided so, then that's for the best." Even though he looks impulsive, but he is the type of person who thinks before he acts. All right, we will now go to Area 52, and the Hope team continues as they planned. We move on to Area 5-3, where everyone is facing the mouse boss. All said, "What's up? It's been a while, huh?" "Ha. It feels like just yesterday I attacked you, all focused." He prepared to attack his boss monster. When the absorption monsters attack him, all slide under him. When right under him, all lit him with his spear. A few moments passed when members of his Hopeland team arrived at Area 5-3. Seo MoonYeob, who was sitting on a pile of serpents, said, "Oh, you guys here? I thought it would take you a bit longer." Of course, all who saw this were very surprised to see it. He really could kill the boss monster serpent alone. From what I see in the image, the system makes you stronger through the points you get from killing monsters or other players. You should at least understand that in order to play the game properly, then you can start clearing this area yourself. Baek Jae-ho and Hyeon, come with me. Seo MoonYeob got down from the corpse and walked over to Baek Jae-ho and Hyeon. He says, "I have a pretty good plan." After handing over the bodies to the main force, Seo MoonYeob, Baek Jae-ho, and Hyeon started moving towards the team's hunting area, because the others would probably notice their ambush if the three were hunting monsters on the way. They seemed to be taking a detour in order to fight strategic monsters. Maybe when everyone was hunting for the serpent monster. Earlier, he almost killed him, even though he only hit him once. Even though Battle has a hunting point system, the team's overall point count shouldn't be that high, because his team has only killed a few advanced monsters. The actual aura color is blue, which is the first stage. So fifth, the aura stage then, what is the effect of 110 willpower? As everyone had expected before, in the middle of his journey, Baek Jae-ho said, "Moon will do it if he doesn't give orders," after saying that if you have a plan, we will definitely meet the enemy team soon. "Ah, right, I just remembered." Baek Jae-ho said, "You are." Then he replied, "When it comes to plans, I just thought about it after meeting a boy who looked like Suran on the enemy team. He has super power. Not bad, but mentally ugly. It seems he is also the son of the Sultan. Of course, there is no guarantee that the Sultan's child will be the opponent of the group we will meet. So if he's not there, I'll monitor the situation again, then give you guys orders. But if he was there, just see what will happen." On the other hand, in Area 1-2, the team's current position, they just got to know him and stopped hunting him. They intend to proceed to the next area. Shim Hyung-so looks impatient to face everything soon, but when he lost because he had gotten that much aura with a monster's mouth, suddenly a spear attack shot and aimed at him. Luckily, another screen noticed the attack and slightly defended it with its shield. Even so, the spear still managed to scratch his face. The sim player immediately realized that the spear must have been an enemy attack and notified the other team members. Another strike team group of 6 people who were in the area one by one. They were all surprised to hear the news that the other group besides being attacked by enemies as well. Seo's appearance there, before the group decided to help the other group. Suddenly, the Hope team consisting of 8 people appeared to confront them. A while ago before Seo, Baek Jae-ho and Hyeon left, Seo ordered them all after handling the serpent. "You will attack the enemy team on the opposite route from the team because you will fight the national representative. Of course it won't be easy, but you have to fight to the death. Because Team A uses to solve it quickly and immediately help you guys. Now Team Hope's main team is holding back the second team." There was tension between them. Seo MoonYeob and Jae-ho, who will be back using their combos. All said, "Oh, he can fend it off even though I hit him hard enough." He replied, "Don't lie. I saw it clearly that I deliberately missed him, while directly attacking the children without mercy. From the start, it was not the act of an adult. No then, goodbye. if you knew that it would be embarrassing if you were to die. Baek Jae-ho was annoyed because Seo kept on babbling. He said, just throw it around. Seo was able to bring the strength to throw Baek Jae-ho, and Baek Jae-ho immediately shot in front of the love team captain. Girl immediately gives orders to her team, now change position to 5, 6, 5 people will go to area 9, and 6 people will go to area 11. Everyone go. The love team, which has 5 members in area 9, Shim Kyung-so, who is in the love team, which uses 5 people, thinks, well, thanks to collecting hunting points in this hunt. Her aura had already become a purple color. Seo was ready to attach back his spear which he had got back, after focusing himself but immediately threw his spear following Baek Jae-ho, who had already gone first. The love team of 5 people immediately noticed the attack. They thought the attack was targeting the Shim and immediately set up a defensive position protecting the Shim. However, they thought wrongly, when right in front of Shim, Baek Jae-ho teleported and attacked the heavy tanker by his side. Another member of the love team immediately intended to kill Baek Jae-ho, who was near him. But unfortunately, the man was killed by Seo MoonYeob's spear. The remaining love team players were shocked by the combo attacks, but they immediately anticipated it by directly targeting Baek Jae-ho, who was still near them. They have to catch him before Baek Jae-ho does the reporting back. But suddenly Hae-yeon was near them, just caught Baek Jae-ho with his whip, then threw him backwards to where the findings were, then catch up with him using teleportation. When he arrived at Seo's place, he asked how old man or you already feel the sensation after so long. Although annoyed, many replied that he was attacked. They all stared at the players separated from the east who had nothing. He said, okay, with this we have defeated the tanks. Now only 303, right? Let's beat 1 person each. The spectators outside couldn't stop screaming. It was amazing how great a combo game had just happened. On the Hope team pretending to set up player Shim, who is the main long-range attacker in his group, but instead kills 2 other players. The way they finished was also an outstanding highlight. He perfectly controlled the speed and range of his attacks to attack opposing players who were aiming for head coach Bae, as expected by a technician capable of setting up ordinary superpowers like Trow reaching his limit. And right now all throw back Baek Jae-ho. All plus Hyun managed to kill the other 2 team members. All that was left was Shim, who was shocked to see his teammates being killed so easily. He said this is nonsense. Everyone around him who said why can't it make sense, all immediately hit the boy with their shields while saying, or is it over? That way the first group of the love team, which consisted of 5 people, was successfully leveled, managed to get 3 kills, soon got 2 kills. On the other hand, the Gameloft group consisting of 6 people who were being surrounded by the main group Hope team, they were surprised to receive a notification that because the other group members had been eliminated. One of the purple-haired Timur figures said, it was impossible for the 5 of them to be defeated that quickly. Ah shit, everyone attack. If we win here, we can be hanged again. Rise up, we are the national representative. The purple hair shot straight to the front. He targeted player Choi. Player Choi recalled all the previous explanations and immediately put them into action. When he managed to block the attack, he saw an opening and immediately counterattacked. The purple-haired player was immediately sent flying backwards. He thinks what the hell is this dense? Even though he just became a tank at the last minute before the match started. But his defense was very solid. The purple-haired player said, damn you, you're just a fake tank. He again attacked player Choi. However, because player Choi thought too much, he instead carelessly tripped on a rock and fell. A few seconds before the purple-haired player's attack hits player Choi, suddenly a notification accompanied by a spear appeared. Seo MoonYeob got 3 kills in all and the group is there. He said good job. After the first set ended with a win of 80, the MVP of the first set was a good player getting a flood of praise from players on his team. According to them, the match was very extraordinary. Baek Jae-ho's appearance was so cool. Earlier, they even asked him to just become a player instead of being a coach. If Baek Jae-ho becomes a player, they assume that at least many are in the top 3 rankings. Baek Jae-ho is also grateful for all the praise. Baek Jae-ho felt that even though it was quite embarrassing, it felt like he was getting into the current battle video. But it feels really good to be able to hold a weapon again after 17 years. Baek Jae-ho, who glanced at everyone who was sitting, staring at his smartphone screen. Baek Jae-ho thought that all of this could happen because he could play with everyone. On the other hand, Seo MoonYeob seems to be watching his favorite soap opera. A few moments after that, the second set would start soon, and the feel of where they were going to play had been decided. Up, down, left, right, and every other direction filled with connected stairways and spaces, and this was a difficult dungeon, which as soon as the player leaves the line play, or the gravity ladder will increase 10 times. A dungeon named Al Labyrinth Object. Before Seo MoonYeob carried out that dungeon gone raid in the past, many superhumans had lost their lives in that place. It seems that the players of both teams are ready to return. When they were walking towards the arena, Shim looked at everyone with annoyance. On the path of Seo, thinking, I just keep dealing with idiots. After returning from the dungeon finals, the wars who always wanted to pit me against Walker, people who worship me as a god, and a bath like the boys Shim. That much they want my ability, huh? Okay, fine, I'll show you. But it will be much more terrible than what you can imagine. Seo smiled as he entered the game, and the second moment came. It began to appear that Team Hope was gathering at the starting point. When Baek was about to explain again about the men and the strategy they would use in the second set, but all of a sudden cut off his explanation. I'm going alone. So you two take care of yourselves. Baek Jae-ho was shocked by that. He asked if Samuel still remembered about the internal structure of the labyrinth. Since the time he did the raid in it, obviously it's only been a year since I did that. I have also made a map of this place. Is the structure different in Battlefield? Baek Jae-ho thought. A year ago, huh? Baek Jae-ho, all of this is only a year old. He also said that there was no change in him because no one knows the team better than Seo. He will trust her to go alone. But Baek Jae-ho advised not to push himself too much. But Seo looks very confident. He thought he was worrying too much about himself. Just be prepared for surprises later, as long as you take it seriously. This time, Seo MoonYeob smiled while thinking that Lock Team started opposite business. It was obvious which way they would go. After thinking about that, Seo immediately moved apart from them, whose speed was extraordinary. Seeing Seo acting alone, Hai Yuan looked slightly worried. But it calmed him down a lot. Seo might look like an unemployed person whose job is just watching every day, but no one could match him in terms of decision-making skills in battle. Even though he said not to worry, but actually inside, he was more worried than anyone. Seo, who was descending at high speed, even though he encountered monsters, he looked happy, and instead welcomed the monsters like old friends who had just met and asked to be slaughtered. He easily looked at all the monsters and immediately went down the dungeon. Maze of the Dead, it's been a year. But if you count the real-world time, 18 years have passed since then. Seo MoonYeob achieved that 10 times gravity anywhere. Other than floors and stairs, if players are not familiar with the layout of this maze, players will easily fall and die. But if the player can make good use of it, the player will be able to get extraordinary shortcuts. By taking advantage of this, all of them managed to find a wall. The love team who saw the sudden appearance of all of them seemed to have confirmed this. It wasn't even 10 minutes since the second set had started, and their team had been tackled by the Warner to all of them. He already knew their level during the first game. So let's just say that they were dead by now, you useless humans. Hearing this, the captain of the love team tried to calm his members, and told his team to back off first. The love team thought how could everyone come there alone? So they had to retreat and reshape their defensive lines. It seems that Team Love really misunderstood the presence of Seo there. But according to Seo MoonYeob, the order from the captain to withdraw was not bad, because if they instead advanced, the match would end here. To their credit, Seo will play with them longer, while the happy ones ran to retreat. He looks like he's looking for the lowest person. After finding his prey, Seo MoonYeob immediately threw his spear with his flagship skill. All spears quickly and accurately killed the prey he was after. That person would not be able to dodge his spear. With a maximum start of his exterior, which is only half of the deterrity substance belonging to Baek Jae-ho, it's a shame because everyone can't take back the spears he has thrown. But Seo thinks the remaining 3 spears must be enough, because the love team is no longer there. All proceeded to where he had planned. On the other hand, the love team lost one of its members after escaping from Seo MoonYeob. Not far from there. They also stopped at an area and held an emergency meeting there. Even though the love team captain had expected the same as using data, he didn't expect it to be the same as reducing it so quickly. Unfortunately, they met with Seo MoonYeob. When they were off guard, one of Love's team members explained, but saw that the rest of his team didn't show up until the end. It seemed that all really went alone. Wouldn't it be better if they became it directly? But the love team captain reasoned, even though it could be true, but they still can't confirm it. If there really were a few people hiding, they would receive too much damage for them to recover. Because it's like this, they should always increase their guard now, because Seo might just ambush them again. Seo Young was standing at the edge of an area, while looking down at the area. Seo thought, all right, This place seems to be doing pretty well based on their movement speed and the time that had passed since their escape. Where they would regroup to rearrange formation, they should be somewhere around there. Seo smile. Although the chance is 50-50, but there is nothing to lose if they are not there. Seo prepared with his spear, that he gave off an aura to envelop the spear. After that he threw his spear down with Siltraw while shouting. Seo MoonYeob's spear formed a wall underneath, but thanks to the impact, Seo's spear sped towards the east, which was discussing. The team that was discussing it didn't seem to notice the arrival of the spear, and ended up losing one of its members because it was hit by the spear. Not only the love team were shocked by the attack, but the spectators outside were also wondering what was going on there. They had just witnessed an unexpected event, though they didn't know exactly what had just happened. But they can conclude that they are in the process of witnessing us as the greatest in Korean history. It turns out that Seo MoonYeob's guess was right. He won the chance 50-50 earlier. That way, all have got 2 kills in this second set. Shim, who looks very annoyed, his trust is overflowing. He reforms all backwards. Let's fight back against him. 2 people are dead. But the love team captain did not agree with the proposal. We are short of people, so sending troops will only reduce our strength. Though Shim looks like an airhead. But this time he complied with the captain of his team, even though he protested a bit but not too much. When they were thinking about their strategy, Seo, who already knew that they were under him because of the attack, just now approached them. Shim seems to be aware of Seo MoonYeob's presence there, but he continues to act like he doesn't know anything. He pretends to be irritated because of the rightness of his team captain. Shim took advantage of that moment to release his aura and released his magic towards Seo MoonYeob, who was observing them. A huge explosion ensued due to the magic. Because he felt finally beat Seo, Shim laughed. That's what you get for coming into my sight. I know you've been hiding behind me. But his laughter stopped and turned into a forest when he heard Seo's voice from the smoke effect islands that slowly disappeared. They saw the figure of Seo MoonYeob, who was fine with a mocking smile. Seo said, "What idiot do you not think that I purposely made a sound so you can realize my existence and you are not good at acting stupid?" After saying that, Seo jumped and ran away from there. Shim seems really surprised by that. Seo can block his superpower that easily. The captain of the love team also felt that the attack earlier was already an attack that had the strength of Shim's superpower, and the aura that he had could be compared to the players who would be seen as big. That's why even his mentality is trash. He can become this dealer of the national team. It wasn't an attack that could be blocked just like that. Seeing the situation there, Team Love's captain decided they couldn't go on like this. Just like Shim said, catch Seo MoonYeob first. They will split into 2 groups of 6 people will start Premi, and the rest will chase Seo MoonYeob. The love team captain ordered the 3 people who would chase everyone to go via the western route. Act like you're going to attack the opposing team and block Seo's escape path. In his opinion, even all of them should have a hard time against 3 dealers alone. When the farming group gets enough points, they will join the group to catch all, and the love team starts their plan. The pursuit team immediately moved as planned. But it seems their plan will not run smoothly. Their opponent is a veteran hunter, who is a player who knows the location of the Lantern of the Day. At any rate, when the club team's pursuit squad was moving, Seo was already watching them while thinking, "Isn't their aim too obvious? With movements like that, you guys are more disappointing than I thought." After that, Seo MoonYeob jumped forward in front of the love team chasing team, but the chase team that contains roles outside of that can react well to Seo or sudden attacks. They became the attack and counterattacked Seo, even though they were beaten up like that. Still, Seo, who had more experience flying hours than them, easily friends avoided their attacks with their 1-centimeter throw technique. He killed all at once. That way, Seo MoonYeob has got 5 kills. There are 6 more people who are still alive from the love team. Seo MoonYeob thought he would wipe them out in one go. On the other hand, the spectators outside look shocked to see Seo's action. It still hasn't been a minute. After he appeared to stop the teaching squad of the love team, but he had already slaughtered the 3 people who were national representatives. The audience began to question whether all really superheroes. The Minister of State, the question that is on many people's minds is what would happen if heroes from history fought against the battlefield lessons of the current generation. But just like during the duel with the player Walker, they felt they could confirm it again. Today, all the expressions of the spectators outside showed the same thing. Whether it was overseas battlefield pro players, and even the youngest hero, Miss Zuran. What a shock. Miss Zuran couldn't take her eyes off Seo, In her mind, she said, "He really is back." Seo MoonYeob, who was receiving a call from Baek Jae-ho, asked what was happening to him to get 5 kills. Instead of telling him the truth, Seo just told him that he already had aura. Hearing this, he was surprised because everyone already got it, and asked him to gather first. Baek Jae-ho asked where he is now. Seo also told the point of its location at that time. But suddenly Seo MoonYeob realized something. Seo MoonYeob told Jae-ho that the match would be over before they got there, and also don't contact him now because he's leaving. After saying that, Seo MoonYeob immediately jumped in front of the remaining love team. With a serious face, Seo MoonYeob said, "Have you been waiting? I'm coming back as soon as I can." Realizing this, the captain of the love team immediately ordered his members not to panic and make formations according to his directions. Its members began to form formations. At first, Seo MoonYeob watched their movements closely. He realized they were planning to attack him from all sides. But even if they attacked while surrounding him, Seo MoonYeob could guess that the people who would attack him were usually the ones with the best moves by looking for players there with the highest speed. As expected, the player with the best movement immediately attacked him, but can withstand his attacks well. Yobi players who attack him have pretty good superpower. Even for a short time, the speed of each can increase beyond the maximum human limit with superpower instant acceleration that consumes aura continuously for 30 seconds, able to move the fastest among all superhumans. But there is one basic thing that makes a player in the National League. That is, just because his body can move fast, doesn't mean his brain can function fast too. Seo MoonYeob continued to defend behind his shield when his students also objects continued to attack him. When a gap opened, Seo MoonYeob attacked him with his spear. But when the player can avoid it, the spear attack is clearly a trick, and the real attack is the shield coming from below. The attack immediately killed the player. He ordered Shim to attack him with his equation spirit. When Shim Hyung-so attacked him, a big explosion occurred and filled the area with smoke. Feeling that Seo MoonYeob's vision was closed, the love team captain ordered one of his members named Jim Yuen to enter and attack Seo MoonYeob. As the screen was running towards it, from the puff of smoke shot a shield towards the player Jin Yun was running. The shield's attack killed him instantly. After the smoke cleared, Seo MoonYeob, who saw the love team's device, who was surprised by the action, immediately took advantage of the situation to do a combo. When he killed them, leaving 2 members of the love team, namely Tem and Shim, Seo smiled at Shim. He said, "Let's see what now. So 2-1, huh?" Shim's body shook violently. He couldn't believe what he saw. Even their national game against France didn't get this crazy. He leaned closer to them while explaining, "Say, Woohyun isn't even that bad, but superpower Mo is a bit lacking. There will be many people with aura over 80 from other countries." When Seo MoonYeob said that, he instead ignored Seo MoonYeob and planned a strategy with the symbol of light. He was immediately annoyed and immediately killed him. Now only Shim Young-so is left, who is scared. With a panicked face, he continued to follow behind, while telling Seo MoonYeob to come closer to him. Of course, Seo MoonYeob replied, even more eager to kill him with one strike from his shield. Shim was blown far back and died immediately. He had made and got 11 kills, an unbelievable situation in the history of Korea. This is the first one-man team wipe. As happened in the first set, unexpected events also occurred during the second, the first one-man team massacre in Korean battlefield history. The reaction from the viewers who watched the live streaming of the match was also crazy, even though the mainstay of the national team is fine not with them at the moment. Seo MoonYeob can help all members of the national team alone. He had completely shattered the predictions of the experts who said that he would need time to familiarize himself with the battlefield. When the 2 teams walked out of the arena, the audience immediately shouted Seo's name excitedly. But Seo MoonYeob's attention was diverted by a flying object that had been following him. While pointing at his object, he asked Baek Jae-ho, "Hey, Baek Jae-ho, what is that?" Baek Jae-ho explained, That's called a drone camera. It's a camera that can record while hovering in the air. The video recorded from the match earlier will be broadcast live." Hearing that explanation, Seo MoonYeob immediately raised his middle finger to the drone's camera. Seeing Seo MoonYeob's behavior, Baek Jae-ho immediately scolded him. "Sorry about that head, sir. Grow up a bit. Let's go. We're going to the MVP interview." Baek Jae-ho has to drag Seo MoonYeob, who looks ridiculous. Sometime after that, Baek Jae-ho and Seo MoonYeob arrived at the interview site. They immediately started the interview, in front of lots of people. Baek Jae-ho and the woman both showed extraordinary performances during the match earlier. "But first we'll ask you, did you think that you would look like that today?" He says, "No. I never thought of it as I came here by force. So training in a rush and just luck, Luckily, my body still remembers past experiences. After Baek answered it, now it's the other reporter's turn to ask Seo MoonYeob. Thank you for the answer. Next, we will ask player Seo MoonYeob. You have shown great performance. At the second time, did you intend to massacre the team from the start? Seo said, yes, it's not difficult when I do it. I relaxed a little at first to get used to the battlefield. After that, I started to understand and move more actively in the second set. Hearing Seo MoonYeob's answer, Caster Lee Ui asked again, so that's it. Next question, do you have any advice for players from the East who suffered heavy defeats at your hands? Seo MoonYeob continued his suggestion, thinking. When you think about it, there are tons of people whose attributes and positions don't match or don't know how to properly use their superpowers. Then Seo MoonYeob replied, to be honest, the head coach, who can't even understand the potential of the players properly. No, the overall structure that maintains them seems to be lacking and is a bigger problem. Project was offended by Seo MoonYeob's words and could only stare at Seo MoonYeob angrily. The returning caster asked, then do you have the desire to lead their own? They're trash, so it's probably not going to be much fun, but of course it might change depending on the situation. We live in a society that we know. Seo MoonYeob made a kind of code with his hand. He made a circle with his thumb and pointer, which means it depends on the money or not. Time passed, Seo MoonYeob and Baek Jae-ho, who were in a car. However, Seo MoonYeob looks a bit surprised because the road he is taking. Open up the direction of the road that can be passed to return home. Also because Kairan is not there, Seo MoonYeob is increasingly wondering, where will he be taken? Baek Jae-ho explained that they were heading to the place where the after-party was held for the CRV game. Hyeon had already left when the two of them were doing their interview. But Seo MoonYeob even looked surprised. Do I want to watch soap operas today? Baek Jae-ho emphasized, that already solved it. Are you still watching it again for today? Stop complaining. And also, why are you saying things like that? And in the interview earlier, you would usually say that you would want to do it. You say the city has an interest in Battlefield. Seo MoonYeob reasoned, yes, but if it's just teaching, I think it's still possible, right? I still have no intention of playing as a player. Slaughtering sheep is only fun for 1 or 2 times. But Baek Jae-ho, how do you train them until he's like that? Just being the head coach is no longer suitable. Baek Jae-ho answered, he also did it because he had to. Baek Jae-ho thought, I thought that if I've been beside Seo MoonYeob for 11 years, becoming a coach would be difficult. But the longer I became a coach, the more I realized how great Seo MoonYeob was. Still, I think it won't be a problem because I've learned from his words, as long as I'm by his side. Even they are one of the members of Chiffon Heroes was inspired by Lemon and became a great trainer. Seo MoonYeob continued. I have understood after today's fight that we don't have a teacher in this country who can teach techniques well. I'm willing to do it if you want to pay dearly. I'm also willing to help out for free. Since you're the head trainer, I'll give you some tips in addition, so try to implement it first place Choi Hyuk in the national team and make him a tank. Secondly, use Leobi the last tail that person can't even control his own speed. Thirdly, don't put Hyun at the forefront. Make him a sub-tank with the back. And finally take out the vice president's son of the association. Baek Jae-ho thanked Seo MoonYeob for wanting to do that. But he was not surprised when he had to take Young-soo out. Seo MoonYeob asked, why would he be afraid of Mr. Jintae's deputy? Baek Jae-ho reasoned, why should I be afraid of him? Even though I look like this, I'm still the Baek Jae-ho of 7 heroes. Based on the specs, I can't just kick a user out. His superpower firepower is very strong, and he also has the highest aura in the team. But according to Seo MoonYeob, mentally it was pointless to hold on to him like in the previous incident. The love team's defeat was caused by that boy. But Baek Jae-ho regretted his superpower, which was too good if he was expelled. Seo MoonYeob is also elbowed out. Baek Jae-ho has to get him out until he gets better mentally. Finally, Baek Jae-ho concluded, so I had to remove him to include Choi Hyuk. Before justifying it, it's true that you will surely be able to get the result. You know that I'm never wrong, right? That's the end of my free service. Tell the old man president that if he wants to hire me, he has to prepare enough salary. Time passed, the two of them had arrived at the Hunter's Hotel where the Atra party was held. When Seo MoonYeob and Jae-ho entered the room, Hyeon immediately greeted them. Uncle, you finally arrived. There's a lot of good alcohol in here. Immediately responded. Oh, looks like you know how to drink. Hyeon, you are growing well, huh? He was excited. Reason because it's my favorite drink. I will also study now. Other drinks in the class are just fruit juice. Baek Jae-ho, who saw his own daughter inviting his uncle to drink, could only separate from the two of them. He thought he would talk to the president in a moment. He shouted, "Okay, the bullies are gone. Let's drink until morning, Hyeon." The people who were there immediately noticed Seo MoonYeob's presence. They all thought, because Seo MoonYeob was already there. This is a great opportunity to talk to him. Looking a bit nervous started pouring out of his body. He realized that there are many engines from all over the world aiming the same as Seo MoonYeob. His assistant stops him. "Will get annoyed if you suddenly approach him with a contract." He also seemed to understand the words of his assistant. "That party maybe then I will approach him slowly." And Yaman suddenly someone passes Green Palman. That person immediately calls Seo MoonYeob. "Excuse me, sir." Seo MoonYeob, who was with Hyeon, immediately turned around. It turned out that the person who called him was Jacquin, a European superhuman engine battle build. But he immediately greeted him for a long time. "Also, my family name is not Seo." But Seo Moon, who was passed by Jacqueline, could only see them just chatting casually. He thought I shouldn't be disappointed just because I couldn't be the first. Seo MoonYeob was really different from ordinary players. If I'm going to be able to understand his 17 deep years of research, you might not be able to move his heart at all. After chatting a bit by giving his business card to Seo MoonYeob, while saying if you're starting to want to make a move, call me okay. After Seo MoonYeob received his card, he clan left him. Only those behind him went straight to Seo MoonYeob. "Wow. Uncle, why is English so good? I heard that Uncle stopped going to school when he was in junior high school and tried to enter the dungeon since he was 13 years old. He says why I go to school? I can just like that because I often travel around the world, and when I meet Welkers I also speak English." Hearing Seo MoonYeob's answer, the thing that slightly raised his tone, really? Then why does it have to be like I kiss in Korean? At that time, by the way, you are a traitor, Uncle. I thought you were stupid as well as me." Seo MoonYeob laughed at that. "Is your head made of stone?" The other side is watching Seo MoonYeob when thinking that because the jackal has gone, now is the time for him to move on. Suddenly there were two people who passed him from his right. The two people immediately approached Seo MoonYeob. "Greetings, Mr. Seo MoonYeob. You can speak English, right?" After seeing who people were talking to him, Seo MoonYeob also said, "I can also speak French. You guys are the Mall brothers, profiting from the war in France, right?" When the Simula brothers were flattering Seo MoonYeob, their uncles were both no longer gun companions, but owners of a club. They were the best team in the world. They had one of their top 3D. Seo MoonYeob thought, the person who used to be good Jaeho in his prime, huh? Then Seo MoonYeob asked Muru brother, "Because you are the owner of the club, are you here because you want to contract me?" Simultaneously, they both answered, not when Seo MoonYeob was surprised because the answer they both explained, "We knew that you would do something unwanted. We are indeed willing to welcome you with open arms if you choose to work with us. But we are also attracted to this beautiful person." They both pointed Hyeon beside Seo MoonYeob, when Hyeon doesn't understand why. They continued while telling him that it looked like they both wanted Hyeon. "Wow, that's an honor. Thank you, Mercy." But it annoyed Seo MoonYeob instead. The two brothers who saw Hyeon watched the child for a long time. Then Saemin asked, "So you're not just trying to impress me, are you?" Two brothers confirmed it. "Of course we will not lie in front of the effort itself. Previously you noted that you were interested in signing him because his ability to kill opponents was still lacking, ensuring that we didn't need substandard sugar from our team. However, after he shifted his position to melee recently, we feel like the last thing missing from this puzzle, it's finally been matched. If he can improve his swordsmanship as well as his physical strength, he will have a chance to play in our team. Of course, if Mr. Seo MoonYeob is also willing to join, then it will create a great synergy. You, Mr. Seo MoonYeob, Nathan." And that's how they explain about Hyeon. Seo MoonYeob felt that their assessment was quite accurate. Then he said that you will think about it later, if I've thought about becoming a player. Hearing Seo MoonYeob's answer, the Moro brothers were even more excited. "We'll prepare a contract wrap to prepare for that. This is why we make money." Seo MoonYeob added, "So based on what you heard just now, club owner who makes quite a lot of money, huh?" The Moro brothers continue, "Only if you can show a player capable of attracting attention from other teams, and as longtime fans, we want to give you the ultimate weapon at your disposal. Will you accept it?" Seo MoonYeob also answered, "Oh, that's okay. I won't refuse it as long as it's free." Hearing that the Moro brothers bowed their bodies, "You can look forward to it. Then we'll excuse ourselves for now. See you next time." After saying that, they both immediately left Seo quickly. But Seo MoonYeob was starting to feel that it was getting tiring. It would be good if people stopped talking to him. But it seems that Hyun is curious about what the two brothers were talking about to Seo MoonYeob. But Seo MoonYeob instead stepped away. He invites for a drink and talks about it. When Hyun was going up and sulking, suddenly someone was talking to Seo MoonYeob. He immediately turned around angrily. He asked, "What now?" The person introduced himself. "I am the presidential secretary of the Blue House, the president of South Korea. But do you know about superhuman?" He said the superhuman marriage system after the outer underground ends. All superhumans who have contributed will receive a pension from the government. He explained it wasn't bullshit, it had been in the system for 17 years. So, we plan to give you a retirement fund that you haven't received in the last 17 years. The nominal amount is 2568 billion won without tax. If thousands of rupiahs are around 27.1 billion won. Hearing the total number, Seo MoonYeob was silent for a moment. After saying that, the man left. But think the 2.5 billion combined with the combinations sent by the association and those sent by Walker total how much, huh? While Seo MoonYeob was thinking about that, someone approached him. He greeted, "Excuse me, Jovialman agent from America." Because Seo MoonYeob was not closing small talk, he went straight to the point. "I'm also tired, so come back while I'm being nice." Even though he saw Seo MoonYeob who was like that, Jovi still tried to talk to him. So that's what I just want to say one thing. This world may still not be a bit foreign. You have saved the world. But the only thing you gain is losing your 17 years. Underground civilization, which is the area of work, you are also gone. But that is a problem that will be solved with time. You will have a new rotation and a place to call home, and a new goal in your life. You will also get used to this peace. So please don't waste your life being lazy. When that day comes, I hope you will remember this. Then I'll excuse you. After giving his business card to Seo MoonYeob, he left him. Shortly after that, Hyun immediately approached Seo MoonYeob and asked, "Wow, your uncle was even targeted by him." But as Seo MoonYeob was looking at the film sale agreement asking, "Hey Hyun, he's weird, who is he?" Just explaining he's a famous figure in us. His nickname is Money Demon. He became very big after taking the superhuman seed from Korea. When to a person? It seems that he is not talking about money, and instead talking nonsense that is not clear. Continuing, "Huh? Really? Yeah. I heard he was very persistent when he tried to sign my dad back in the day." Seo MoonYeob glanced back at him muttering, "Yes, I agree with some of his words anyway." A little later now, the main event of today's party, the donation ceremony, will begin. The donation speech will be given by this man, the one who has donated more than Seo MoonYeob. The person here is Mr. Seo MoonYeob. Confused when the lights there shone on him, and his name was also mentioned, but he still stepped onto the stage and began to speak. "Let's see what you said. I'm the one who donated the most here. What's the amount of my assets?" Suddenly, so the audience was there, Mr. Jin the shouted, 1,140 billion won following your last wish. Coach Bake and myself are already responsible for taking care of it. Then Seo MoonYeob continued. The Battlefield Association was very kind to inform me from the audience. But still, even I myself didn't know that there would be that many. To be honest, I heard that I will receive 2.5 billion won, which I haven't received in years, but after I heard, or my wealth is over 1 trillion, it's a little funny to think that I was happy to get 2.5 billion won just now. Should I apply for a refund? The audience who were there laughed at the little joke put out by Seo MoonYeob. And then Seo MoonYeob continued, "You see, it's been 17 years since Seo MoonYeob was dominated. I just recently returned from the dungeon finals, but a lot of things had changed. Seo MoonYeob people say that I have saved the world, complimented me with the sentence how noble the sacrifice is and others. But really there is no such thing as glory. From that I just like Dunnigan. There are times when I beg that the underground civilization is not destroyed and will always be there for me to face. So I'm noticeably moved when people thank me for equalizing the world. I don't feel proud either. It's just like an exciting thing that's over. But there's one thing that I'm proud of, namely the children of heaven helped by this money, who are certainly now living as adults. This is far more noble compared to eating the world. I dreamed of a world where all children in the future could live a happier life than me." And Seo MoonYeob full speech ended there. When Seo MoonYeob was walking down a ladder from his bench, Mr. Jin, who had been waiting for him, immediately spoke to him. "Your mouth actually knows how to talk sweetly. Are you trying to cover up that act in you with just 1.7 trillion? Seo MoonYeob immediately nudged him. "Don't get me wrong, I'm originally kind, but I became like this because of my unlucky childhood." Mr. Jinton continues, "It's not good to make excuses like that. From what I can see, you are still the type of child with problems. Seo MoonYeob suddenly cut off his sentence. He asked, "What if I stop talking nonsense and just get to the point?" "That way, Mr. Kuman. Let's talk about this as a senior, or you have to destroy kids from national team like that." Seo MoonYeob asked back. "Then old man is their president to be trash like that." Hearing that question, Pak Jintek patted his forehead. "Game story. This is a mistake now. The league is just a playground disturbed by a suman," Seo MoonYeob replied, and before that too, he immediately scolded him. "You poison snail. I've tried hard for him to come this far." "Whose fault do you think? The government doesn't mark us that much because they treat superhumans like monsters. Even though it's like that, Seo MoonYeob still looks very santui. Why is the government's action being my fault? Mr. Jinten said you played a big role. You went around picking up Seo MoonYeob people at the National Assembly and the Blue House. Thanks to you, the superhuman image in every police chief is able to eat like you." Hearing this, Seo MoonYeob was carried away by emotion. Good they were the ones who acted. Even though his anger was already mounting, Jinte then calmed himself down. "I forget this was my real reason for coming to see you. Would you like to help out his team as a skills trainer? I'm not going to ask to become a player like you said earlier. Your salary will suddenly be the same. Cutting the sentence? That seems a bit difficult. I have something new I want to do." Now time has passed after attending the after party. Now Seo MoonYeob and Baek are in a car. On the way home, Seo MoonYeob muttered, "All right, it's around 16 billion won. Looks like I can do it." Heard Seo MoonYeob mutter? Baek Jae-ho asked, "What are you talking about?" Seo MoonYeob casually said, "I want to be a club owner." Suddenly, Baek Jae-ho was surprised by Seo MoonYeob's words. Explained seeing Baek Jae-ho that trash has become national treatment. "We make me a little disappointed as Koreans if a strong child can develop well right away." Then Baek Jae-ho asked, "Since when did you get so patriotic? And even the smallest team in the AB First Division League costs over 20 billion won." Hearing this, he continued, "Oh, that sounds interesting. It looks like I can make a lot of money easily if I buy Solo 3, the second division, and the name comes from there." Suddenly, Baek Jae-ho realized something. He shouted, So it's not patriotism, but how come you just want to make money?" Seo MoonYeob laughed at Baek Jae-ho's screams. "Isn't that how it should be?" A few moments passed, the two of them had arrived at Baek Jae-ho's house. But when they both got out of the car, they were shocked to see a woman who kept staring at them. Baek Jae-ho, who was quite into it, immediately approached the woman. What did Suran bring here while?" Seo MoonYeob Suran replied, "I also have something I want to do, seeing Suran who continues to stay sharp." Seo MoonYeob thinks, "What is this?" I don't know what he is thinking. In the past, I could tell Seo MoonYeob from his expression. What if he suddenly shoots? Wow, that's bad. I have to check his stats first for now. So Seo MoonYeob immediately activated his skill ice of analysis, but Seo MoonYeob was shocked again after seeing his status. Seo MoonYeob's ability was almost stuck above that. It even has a new superpower, namely Identify Location. Seo MoonYeob thought this boy seemed to be much stronger than before. Seo MoonYeob stepped his foot. He kept his image calm, then greeted him. "How are you? Are you here to kill me, Suren? Said I did think of killing you when I heard that you became immortal. But that's not why I came here today." Heard Suran's answer. Looking somewhat relieved, then he asked again, "Who said I was willing to die in your hands? Moaning up to here if you came here just to avenge past obstacles? You're also still alive thanks to me, so let's just forget about that." Suren continues and already means Baek Jae-ho again. "I have forgiven you for being mean to me in the past." Then Seo MoonYeob asked again, What then, why are you here? I want to check with my own eyes whether you are really back or not. Since I have confirmed it, I will leave after saying that." Sunan left the two of them, but Asuran's behavior surprised Seo MoonYeob. What the heck from earlier actually, what did he come here for? On the other hand, Suran, who was walking away, looked back at his past when Salmon scolded him. His words were indeed excessive. It made him gloomy. Cold, too. He really had reached his limit, when Gloomy was crying because he was scolded by Seo MoonYeob. Suddenly a loser appeared behind him. He thought he had to quickly develop at that time. However, because he was too tired, the skill wouldn't come out. When Suran suddenly gave up, Seo MoonYeob saved him. "So you can't even kill 100 of these?" Suran stared at Seo MoonYeob's face, which was right in front of him. Then he asked, "Are you okay?" Seo MoonYeob's words made Suran's heart flutter. His blood flowed quickly and his cheeks turned red. He blushed, settled Seo MoonYeob. Suran, who smiled blushing, prepared the incident on her way. He thought you really came back. After resting a few days after a tiring day from the afternoon, in the game, Seo MoonYeob, who is relaxing at home, looks happy with joy as his hands shake when he sees the total balance in his bank account. The money is in now. Which club should I buy? The shirt that accidentally saw Seo MoonYeob was losing came up to him. Banking? Not before that. How are you really planning to buy a club? Staring at his smartphone screen that was showing Korean players playing battle with a smile on his face. Seo MoonYeob confirmed. Yes, we'll use this opportunity to develop my hobby while investing a little. Seeing Seo MoonYeob, who was already chuckling with his wish, he said, if that's what you want, you will be able to do well. But that's because clearing out excess money, buy it, tell me I'll buy you a League One club. That's the best thing I can do for you. But it seems that Seo MoonYeob didn't like what he said, which is exciting. I'm actually asking you for money. I already know about GKI 1 in the second Caddy League. But is that more like a destination hearing that? Big Jae-ho explained that Seoul is a league consisting of 7 people. From one team, the best Jae-ho becomes 2. Like a regular league consisting of 11 people. The league system is the same, but the winning team of 7 can move up to more than 2 with some conditions. It's low, so in terms of cost effectiveness, so is better. According to that explanation, Seo MoonYeob asked, really? But were there many players there who had time to sit on the edge of the sofa? It continues naturally that the regular league has more talented players usually prefer kayaking in 2 compared to the Champions League. After thinking about Seo MoonYeob's explanation of being happy, Seo MoonYeob finally made his choice. Oh, then I'll just have 2 clubs since we're talking about it. I'll just buy it now. Seeing Seo MoonYeob, who has already made his choice, he asks, do you already have a target? Seo MoonYeob casually answered, not yet, should I just ask the real president? Shortly after that, Seo MoonYeob immediately contacted Jintae and immediately told him his plan. After hearing Seo MoonYeob's plan, Seo MoonYeob Pak Jinta, who was too happy, suddenly shouted from his phone. It's good to be the owner of that club. That's a brilliant idea. But Seo MoonYeob was even annoyed because of his scream. Hi, old man. My eardrums are about to explode. It feels like talking, just relax. So that's why I'm asking, but are there any excess on sale at the moment? Then Mr. Jinton answered. There are 3 advantages currently being sold. There was also a club that issued an urgent sale. While taking a file from his desk, he gave out the information. Time passed. After Seo MoonYeob received information from Mr. Jinton about the club that was being urgently sold, Seo MoonYeob immediately visited a battle venue. He is competing, and excessive his concern is Hanjong Industries. When Seo MoonYeob entered the place where the match was already sitting on the stage, the audience looked very excited. They gave up. Kai cheered his proud team on. Go Gaitanoid! Destroy that trash! Those Baek Jehogur zombies who always refuse to come out. Even though they were always in the last position, in case Seo MoonYeob felt put down. There were people who would pay attention to him in such a disguise. But of course, that's just Seo MoonYeob's feelings about him. As Seo MoonYeob does, but see himself as a weirdo. When Seo MoonYeob was sitting in the audience among the gay lovers, they immediately talked about it. What's with the bracelet? Why did his face turn out like that? But it would be nice if there was at least one competent person here. After a while of waiting, finally, the players from both teams entered the arena. The players from Club GTA were seen walking by themselves and greeted by shouts at the GP lovers. In contrast to Jong's complaints, the players looked gloomy, and not a single pencil of complaints walked towards the arena. While Trash also said that word kept coming out of Seo MoonYeob's mouth when he saw a substance player that didn't match his standards. But after some rubbish, finally a friend saw a player who he thought was interesting, a player named Namgung Ji-hoon, and the real no. Before the match started, the screen in the arena started to show the positions of the players showing it. The kids also commented on it, so the skinny one supports him with superpower like Protech was invited. Suitable to be support, but his skill attributes that indicate his weapon techniques and skills. Using his body is 74 out of 95 points. He has great potential to become a pretty great dealer. Choose the unlucky one, unless someone sees his potential. He would forever live without knowing his true talent. Okay, the next loss are 87 and 85. He is in reality with the person named Chow Yun from the national team. His superpower is also quite good, although his boarding strength is quite marketable. But his personality is quite big. Alright, you also passed, but apart from the 2 other people earlier, that's dregs. I have to be grateful because at least I got 2. Are they reserve players? Seo MoonYeob's attention was distracted by several people who were cheering from the sidelines of the arena. but he suddenly couldn't hold back his laughter after seeing one of the reserve students starts. What the heck is that one superpower jam? Is he really a flea? But I guess it's not so bad if he's an archer, even though archers with that start won't be too threatening. But if lonesomeness can be increased to 100, it seems to be interesting. An hour passed after that. The match ended with the victory of gold in the national team from 2 sets. Hanjong couldn't score even one, which made Seo MoonYeob comment. It's even more exciting to develop them, so Seo MoonYeob has made his choice. He calls Jin Tae and tells him, I have made my choice. I will buy Han Xiao. Time passed 2 days later at the Korea building. Seo MoonYeob was seen attending a handover ceremony for his club in a room. In the organizational building, the owner of the complaint previously shook Seo MoonYeob's hand while saying how many words. Then I will hand over his team to you. Those users have suffered a lot because of my incompetence. Seo MoonYeob firmly answered, Don't worry, I plan to make them the greatest team. Young's superiors continued, I believe in you. You will definitely be able to do it, Mr. Hero Yo. I really wish you all the best. So now Seo MoonYeob has to become the owner of the Hanjong Industries Club. The news also began to spread in newspapers and mass media covering Battlefield, which was also accompanied by comments from netizens. Love the clicks that keep questioning every move you make. After finishing the event in front of the social building, the Korean battled Mr. Kuman met Seo MoonYeob to congratulate him. Congrats Moon with this when you officially become the owner of the club, that's nothing. Baek Jaeho Seo MoonYeob good luck. Or you're congratulating people just because that person bought General? Hearing Seo MoonYeob's words like that made Jin Tae immediately approach him. Hey, I congratulate you on being the owner of a club. It's different from streetcars like snacks. So how are you going to operate my team? He says I will just let them do what they have been doing for now. I wanted to find some players first. Jin Tae also agreed that he thought it would be good to leave the matter to normal people. Because Kong Pallet Park had already brought his motorbike, Seo MoonYeob also said, by the way, because this matter is over. I went first to see the new motorbike. Jin Tae asks, Did you just buy it? While riding his sports motorbike, Seo MoonYeob reasoned that in the future, I will be traveling a lot, and it's a bit strange if I have to continue to hitchhike you all the time. I bought it with the money I had left over from buying the club. After saying goodbye to Mr. Jin, they immediately left him quickly. He spurred his iron horse on the highway. Can motorbikes really enter toll roads in Korea? Of course not. This is special for Seo MoonYeob. Apart from using a motorbike on the highway, Seo MoonYeob doesn't even wear a helmet. Of course, the people who were driving there were very surprised when they saw someone driving a motorbike past his car on the toll road. What kind of Baek Jaeho wants to avoid motorbikes on the toll road? But after the motorists saw that Seo MoonYeob was riding the motorbike, their attitude immediately changed, which was angry. Now they are happy to understand it. It looks like he bought the bike with his compensation money. That's Seo MoonYeob. He's free to do it. He's also above the law. That way the police would know it was him. Yes, you can do that, Seo MoonYeob. After a while riding his motorbike, finally Seo MoonYeob arrived in front of the Hanjong Industries headquarters. But it seems that the headquarters is in accordance with Seo MoonYeob's inspiration, where the condition of the building looks a bit worrying. Although Seo MoonYeob looks a little disappointed, he can still think positively. At least the building is big. When Seo MoonYeob was paying attention to its use, suddenly someone approached him from behind, or outsiders were not allowed. But his attitude immediately changed when he saw Seo MoonYeob, turned around to see him. I didn't expect you to visit this afternoon. Club owner, I heard you just took over this club today. Hearing his self-introduction, Seo MoonYeob, instead thinking differently, his body is pretty good as he's superhuman eyes of analysis. According to my guess, this can be a pretty great support. If he becomes an active player when Coach Choi wants to say something, I'll ask first. So how old are you? Confused. Why did Seo ask that? While scratching his head that didn't itch, Coach Choi answered, I'm 43 years old, born in 1980. But because Coach Choi doesn't want to admit it, Seo continues to emphasize a bit, and his words are true. So I was born in 76, and you were born in 80s, right? Because Seo MoonYeob had suppressed it so much that Coach Choi especially had to use it. Then before continuing from now on I will call you brother. Choi, you can also call me Hyung. Alright Choi, I want to go around this building, so guide me. It seems that Coach Choi is still reluctant to call Seo MoonYeob as Hyung. He feels more comfortable calling him the club owner, that way Coach Choi guides Seo MoonYeob. Facilities at the headquarters range from offices, canteens, gyms, dormitories, and others. That's the cracks of the existing facilities, and the number of files here are 14 people, Seo MoonYeob said. I already knew when I bought it. We really lack players, but fortunately Seo MoonYeob, the facilities needed are here. Even though it's already rusting, Coach Choi wants to add that the land is really wide, so Seo MoonYeob has the most important things available. And the last one is the training center. Coach Choi also shows the room where they keep the modules for practice. While looking, see the condition of the room and the modules, but commented that this one is also big and old, but why are there only 11 modules here? Don't we have 14 players? According to the question, Coach Choi's expression suddenly changed. The price of the module was too expensive, so we could only buy 11 units. Looking at the level of the green plate like that, Seo MoonYeob thought, why is this person acting like a poor person even though he has super healing powers, right? Just work in the hospital. Even though I don't really like him because he has superpower to recover and inspire him, he's not that bad to be a trainer, and because the biggest problem right now lies with the players. Then, as Seo MoonYeob said, okay, let's chat with the players. Of course the coach was surprised by Seo MoonYeob's sudden request. What is this all of a sudden? Seo MoonYeob continued. Yes, I want to meet them right now, so call the people I ordered. Although Coach Choi was surprised by that, he still carried out his orders and called several of his club's players to meet in turn in the lounge. Sometime after that, after one of the students met Seo MoonYeob in the lounge, Seo MoonYeob explained that he had heard the news, right? Your new club owner. Hearing that, the player who was standing in front of him, Seo MoonYeob, immediately corrected himself. My name is Lina Yoon. It is an honor to meet you, Mr. Club Owner. While observing his physical condition, Seo MoonYeob thought his body was small. He really looked like a flea. Then he asked, looks like you're practicing using a bow today, huh? Suddenly the same question made Lina surprised. Wow, how could you know? Continuing, I'm Seo MoonYeob. I can tell something like that just from the calluses on your fingers. You must be worrying a lot, huh, because your skills won't improve no matter how hard you try. But think impressive backstory and speedy but strange that keeps him from being a great millennial, because your skills are lacking too. What Seo MoonYeob said, he looked desperate. Seo MoonYeob said, no problem. I'll make you appear in the owl line up. Not only surprised because Seo MoonYeob said that he could come up with that concept too. Increasingly making Lina confused, apart from the initial up concept, what was that loudly saying from now on? You will become a thief who steals the mentality of the opposing team. When Leah was beset with confusion, Seo MoonYeob asked again, you can't improve no matter how hard you practice, right? It's time to hear a question like that himself. In fact, he gets even more nervous if the one who admits it, isn't he going to be fired later, right? Seeing Lina, who was sweating more and more, Seo MoonYeob immediately calmed her down. Don't worry, you won't be fired, right? Hearing Seo MoonYeob's words alluding to his talent, suddenly Lina asked, maybe my talent is archery. But Seo MoonYeob scolded him because of that question. Are you stupid? What kind of player can't use a bow? Hearing Seo MoonYeob's words like that, Lina couldn't hold back her tears. Her innocence became Seo's material to bully her. Then Seo MoonYeob continued, your talent is not something like that. Your talent is running. If you only focus on running and combine it with the superpower clock that you have, what do you think will happen if you manage to tell the enemy by shooting your bow will be able to steal a kill? Monsters that even your enemy team has a hard time grabbing, and if they get angry they chase you, if you can just rely on your speed and run away from there. After hearing Seo MoonYeob's explanation, Seo MoonYeob Lina asked, Ren, what do you mean? I will act as controller. Seo MoonYeob also confirmed that it was true, but you have to only focus on controlling the field, because if it interferes with their hunting, then they won't just let you go, but even if they try to catch you, you won't get caught because of your speed. In short play this game, it's always like that. I'll tell you about the training later, so if you just need to run like your life depended on it. New heroes will join the real match after speed up to a certain point due to Lina's naive nature. Without hesitation, she asked Seo MoonYeob, if I do what I will really be able to become a core player. Seo said for sure. If your performance is good, you can even get into the national team. Hearing that he looks happy, he was excited, like a little boy, who kept asking the same thing to his parents. Is it really? This is true, right? While smiling, Seo also convinced him that it was true. Lina's mind was now filled with the possibility that she could become a national team player. Because of that, she jumped up and down and thanked Seo MoonYeob. Thank you very much. I will do my best. Seo MoonYeob told him to go and called Jiyeon to face him. After a while after Lena's departure, someone knocked on her room door. When Seo MoonYeob told her to come in, Jihoon immediately introduced himself. It's an honor to meet you. I held Jihoon in the support position. Seo MoonYeob looked back at the condition of his PC while thinking. This is the first time I've seen an emaciated person among superhumans. This team really had some weird players, but one that felt weird was because he was just observing himself. He also tried to open the conversation. I heard you called me to talk about something, but why? Before he finished his sentence, Seo MoonYeob immediately cut him off. You are no longer supported, of course. Seo MoonYeob's words made me flinch. What but I support? Seo MoonYeob emphasized. I said you're not support. But it seems that Saving is the type of person who cannot understand if he is only told 1 or 2 times. Casually denying Seo MoonYeob's words, but I'm a support, is there something? Seo MoonYeob cut his sentence again. Not only that, he couldn't hold back the itching anymore. Heh, you're not a support